And we'll call the meeting to order and roll call.
Vice Chair Breckville,
Here.
Board Member James,
Here.
Board Member Manera,
Here.
Board Member McChrystal, Board Member Moser,
Here.
Board Member Scherer,
Here.
Board Member Whalen.
Here. All right, let's have the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. We'll skip the oath because we already took that. I think everybody was there, so we're good. And the first item of business is to select the chair and vice chair. So do we have, I think, we got a lot of new members, so there may be questions. Do we want to just see if there's any questions first before we go to motion, or some, relative to what those positions are, and, what your responsibilities are and that kind of thing? Okay. Okay. All right, can we have a motion for chair?
Mark, why don't you be the chair? I move Mark becomes the chair.
Second? Can I have a second?
Second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, I got stuck. So, now, vice chair. So, do we have a motion? Anybody interested? Motion for vice chair?
I think Bonnie's interested.
That may be, I think so. That could be too. Do I hear a motion?
Well, can I say something
Sure.
first? This commitment would be a lot for me in terms of family and work and travel. So if there is anyone else that's interested, that would be fabulous.
What is involved with being a vice chair?
Well, technically, you're just the vice chair for this meeting, and if I'm gone, you fill in, or if there's something like that. But, later on in the agenda, we're going to also nominate 2 members to sit on the CRA, and that would be another meeting, and there's some higher financial disclosures that are involved in that. But it doesn't have to be. The members that go to the CRA can be at large. So, they don't have to be the chair and the vice chair. They can be any member from the CRB. And Bonnie, just because you're vice chair doesn't mean that you
Okay.
have to go to the, you have to go to the CRA if you don't want to do
Okay.
that.
Well, in that case, then I will accept.
All right.
I move that Bonnie become the vice chair.
Here a second?
I second. Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, Bonnie, you're stuck. All right. Can I have an approval for the minutes?
Can we do the agenda first, Chair?
Oh, I'm sorry. I was all into that, and then I missed it, right?
With the order of the Development Department has requested to move item 6 to number 4, number 5 stay number 5, and number 4 become number 6.
Yeah, so we need an approval of the agenda, reversing the order on the action items, 6, 5, 4 instead of 4, 5, 6. Have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, so we'll change the order on that then. Now can I have an approval of the minutes? A motion for approval?
Motion to approve.
Have a second? All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none? It passes. Now, let's, I want to go to comments from the public on non-agenda related items, but if that's okay, but I'll ask Lee, if, before we go there, can we take just 1 minute to, 'cause since this is a new board and many of us aren't allowed to talk to each other outside the meeting, but if the members could kind of just introduce themselves, a little bit about their background, and that's it, just go from there. Is that okay? All right. We'll start with you, Mr. James.
My name is Frederick James. I pastor a church in East Stewart, St. Paul AME Church. I also work on the golf course. I've been doing golf course work for about 30 years, landscaping and that type of thing, detail work. And I'm just excited to be a part of this board.
Thanks.
My name's Scott Whalen. I came here from Charlotte, North Carolina. I was in law enforcement for many years. I have a wife and 3 kids, and I'm excited to be part of this board.
If you're not excited to be part of it, you're still on it, so I just want to make that clear.
I figured.
My name is Bonnie Moser. I'm an urban designer, and I specialize in what's in the public right away. So mobility, streetscapes, and public spaces, plazas, and parks.
All right, my name is Mark Breckbill, and I am a CPA in town. I've been here since '86, and I've had my CPA firm since '94, and I love the city. So that's it.
I'm Clay Scherer. Been born and raised here in Stewart. My family's been here a long time, but I'm trained as an entomologist, so I'm a bug guy. And I lived in different places across the country and the world, and where I've lived, I've gotten involved in the community. So I have some experience from Center City, Philadelphia, working with community groups, also in Winter Park, Florida, same thing, when redevelopment groups or development groups, community groups, tree planting programs, and very happy to be in Stewart again and part of this group.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jeff Manera. I have a local commercial real estate and business brokerage firm, and I've been involved in either working or living or both in Stewart since my early 20s and the 1980s.
All right, thanks. Appreciate it. It's always good to figure out who we all are, so going from the start. All right, comments from the public on non-agenda related items. Do we have a card?
Chair Breckbill, I do have Mr. James Christie.
Okay.
Good evening, good afternoon. Happy to be before you again. I'm going to be short today. Last week, I sent to the city commissioners via email a little information about East Stewart and our, desire and what we feel our need to have protections for the community. Right now, we feel that there aren't any protections in the community to protect from being pushed out of the community, basically. So we have established some guidelines as far as what we wanted. And then we sent another email to the city regarding the plans for those protections. Those particular plans written by us, the community. Now, it's not all the community, but it's a great deal that I'm representing today. It is my desire and our desire, we'll call East Stewart Grassroots, that plan gets before every single planning committee, CRA, CRB, local planning, the city commissioner, and I will be before you quite a bit, explaining that plan, telling you where we're coming from. In Martin County in Florida, there are great protections for people, for vegetation, for animals, the turtles. You guys changed, not necessarily you, but the city, changed the whole concept of drinking out of a straw. I hate those paper straws with a passion, but you changed the whole plastic straw thing for turtles. Me and my wife went to the beach the other day, and we sat down and relaxed a bit. She said, watch it. You're sitting at a turtle habitat. I said, baby, there's no sign here. So there are protections. The people of East Stewart need protections. We want to stay in the community. We want to build our wealth in the community. And we don't want to be pushed out. So you'll be getting lots of information. I'll be before you quite a bit every meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Christie. Appreciate it. Any other comments from the public?
I have none, Chair.
Okay. The next thing on the agenda is comments from board members. So we'll go from this side this time. Any comments, Jeff?
Comments or questions or both?
Just general, yeah. These aren't about specific items on the agenda, but just questions or concerns or comments or whatever you want.
Just wondering where we can get more resources to go back, since we're new board members, some of us, to go back and find a little bit of what are the outstanding items that are still on the agendas on an ongoing basis so that we can backfill some of our knowledge instead of spending time going back on things that are already resolved. That would be useful resources.
Okay, and I think that is something. We have a, you know, really, I can't remember a time when we had a board that was quite this new, and especially the CRB was usually long-standing members. And so, and the CRB and the CRA is a long-term proposition. That's where the value comes from, is the long-term proposition. So I think it'll be good. I would like to see us maybe do a little workshop type thing where people can attend, the public can attend, and we can kind of go over maybe where we are with some of the zoning issues, where we are with some of the things that are going in downtown, and get some feedback, and what we've looked at in the past, what's in the development process. I know Pinal provided a list of projects for all the projects that had been approved within the CRA that either were started or hadn't started yet. So that would be good to know what's out there. So, and I think it would be good if we did those as workshops rather than at the regular meeting, because then staff doesn't have to come, and it's not one of those kind of things where everybody has to be there. We can have the meeting, we can discuss the items, and I mean, you know, go through it, or at least not tie them up forever, that type of thing. So anyway, but good point. I think that's a good point.
Yeah, thanks. Maybe following up to Jeff's comments, I will just say maybe a public thanks to Pinal and team who were nice enough to host me for an hour or so and give me some of the background on the CRB and its actions. I found that very, very helpful. But there's a lot more to learn, so I do echo Jeff's comments, and maybe your suggestion, Mark, would be a good idea.
Thanks. Bonnie?
Yes. Well, first, just to piggyback off of that, I just want all of you new board members to know that you can always reach out to city staff with questions you have. I do all the time. Sometimes I'm asking them when we're going to be reviewing a project if they'll send me like the landscape plans. You know, I get really into the nitty-gritty, and they always deliver. And I'm sure there's some things I can't see. They've never told me there's anything I couldn't see. But just reach out to them and feel free to ask, because they always answer in a timely manner. Second thing I wanted to mention, and I chatted with Pinal about this yesterday on the phone, is at our meeting last week, we talked about that 5-year plan for the capital improvements, and I guess that's going to be on the agenda in March, so we've all got some time to sort of look over plans and prepare for that. We all did get an email this week from a community member who's an architect in the community, and I just wanted to share these for the public to hear. She sent a list of what her top 5 are. And I'm not going to read the entire email, but I'll read the bullet points. Walkability and bikeability in the downtown core, future land use for Old City Hall, revitalizing Flagler Park, addressing parking and connectivity. Oh, sorry, I guess there were just 4. And I just wanted to provide some food for thought when we're talking about this next month. When I do plans in a community, we have basically like 3 different strategies that we'll implement within a CRA. First, you can go into a concentrated area of the CRA. Maybe that's your downtown core, and you invest a lot of money into that one area, and you assume that things will bleed out from there. Another strategy that you could do is do a little bit within each character area of the CRA. So maybe that's East Stewart, downtown, the Triangle. I'll call it the medical district, where we've got a lot of our medical offices in the hospital. And last would be just to focus on the connections within and to those places. So just some food for thought from a professional, like how we go about planning for these, what the strategy is. They're all good strategies, they all work, but something to think about over the next month.
I don't have any. I think I'll probably take up some time with you personally at some point to get me up to speed. I just feel like a little bit overwhelmed. I know it's available to me, so it's incumbent upon me. So I'll reach out to you, and we'll set up a meeting so I can, you can bring me up to speed.
Yeah, we were came for the oath and the information that was given, we did not have I didn't even know about the access to the emails. And so we just need to get caught up to speed. So thank you for bringing that up today.
Okay. Just a couple things that I would just mention that I want to focus on. I want to mention that, you know, the CRA is different than the city. The funding is different. What we do with the funds are different. The restrictions we have are different. And I think it's really important that we understand, you know, really what our purpose is, and we don't kind of stray into some other stuff, because, you know, our job is really just to deal with the CRA and not really get involved in issues that are outside the CRA per se. So I think I would, you know, I just want to make sure as we go along, if there's any questions about that, again, Pinal and the staff and everybody else have been really good about providing that information, and they will provide that information. The only reason I'm suggesting doing some of this stuff more formally in a group environment is so they don't have to do it time and time and time again with 8 or 10 people, you know, asking the same questions. But so that's one of the things I wanted to I would like to stress is going forward is that we understand what our role is versus, say, the LPA or whatever else. And then I would mention that that with East Stewart we have, you know, the East Stewart Historical Group, which I think they're getting revved up again, and I'm glad for that, because I think we do need to, you know, the whole concept of gentrification and all of the things that can happen with that when you start talking about development are important, and they're part of this meeting, and I think they should be included. And I think the city's made some strides in terms of ownership of property and clean title and things like that that are going to help with some of that. So I think we probably should focus, or at least have some discussion of that down the road. And then I guess the last thing is I hope that, you know, just in general, we're not afraid to speak out. If we don't agree with somebody, you know, we want to, you know, say what our opinion is, and that's fine. I mean, we all care about the city. We know that. You wouldn't be volunteering your time if you weren't. So, you know, going forward, I think we take all comments in the manner that they're offered, which is just how you feel about something, and there's nothing wrong with feeling different than what other people on the dais feel. So I just encourage you to offer your suggestions when the time comes, and we'll be good with that. All right, now we're going into, we've reversed the agenda, so we've got the Polk Street Hotel, and that's quasi-judicial, which it's interesting. I don't remember last year having a quasi-judicial, and I've never done one. I think Campini did it one time, but I don't think I've ever done those. I've seen them done at the city commission meeting. But basically, what that means is that we have that the applicant and the staff are sworn in, and we have an oath they have to take, and that becomes you know, the basis for their comments and the discussion that takes place. So I guess I would. Lee, you want to read the agenda item?
Sure, I can. And then if I may be heard after that, just to kind of briefly describe the quasi-judicial.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
So this is an ordinance number 2537-2025, an ordinance of the City Commission of the City of Stuart, Florida, amending the city's official zoning map to rezone a .33 acre parcel, which is located at 255 Southwest 6th Street, from the urban waterfront zoning designation to urban highway zoning designation, providing directions to the city clerk, providing for repeal of all ordinances in conflict, providing for severability, providing for an effective date, and for other purposes. And Chair Breckbell, if I could be heard again, for the record, City Attorney Lee Baggett. When you guys, your board is an advisory board the majority of the time. There is one particular area on public art. You guys are the final authority, so you make the final decision. It's not a recommendation to the board. Whatever decision you make will be binding on the applicant. All other issues that come before you are advisory. So you act as a board and you vote and you make a recommendation to the city commission. Does that make sense? And when we have quasi-judicial, it's an applicant is seeking to do some sort of development or redevelopment, and you're stepping out of your position. Like normally we're in a legislative type decision-making and you're stepping out of that role and in as like a judge, judicial. So there's evidentiary hearing. It's evidence is brought to you in testimony. There can be documents and photographs and so forth that you review, and you're stepping out and you're acting as a judge. That's why it's called quasi-judicial. You're also going to be asked about ex parte communications. The point is when there's an applicant coming forward with an application, if you've spoken to like a group in the city that wanted to influence your decision on your vote, you would need to disclose that. If people emailed you, you'd need to and gave you their recommendation on what this particular project that's coming before you, need to disclose that. If you speak to anybody before the meeting about a particular quasi-judicial hearing that's coming before you, you just need to disclose it. The whole purpose is it gives the applicant notice that that conversation took place, and they could ask you about it and address any concerns out of that. So if you have any questions on if it was or not, it's probably best just to go ahead and disclose it anyway, or even ask me. And I will say, you know, we talked about staff being available. I'm available at any time as the city attorney. I'm your attorney for the board. So I'm here in City Hall, so you can call or email and come down. I know Commissioner Reed's here. Before he was a commissioner, he was coming in my office getting advice because he was on one of our advisory boards, the Board of Adjustment. So actually, that's not an advisory board. That they made final decisions. So and so feel free. I don't want you to be hesitant at all about calling me. Especially a lot of the newbies are going to have a lot of questions. At the end of this, the city clerk and I are going to give some guidance and some education on public records, which you're going to love. And that'll probably answer some questions you might have. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Do any of the board members have any ex parte communications to disclose?
Just that email from the architect that Bonnie mentioned, we received.
Okay. All right. Let me individually go, you know, I guess we individually have to go through. So, Frederick, it just state that you didn't have any ex parte communications, if that's, and, you know, that you're here with an open mind. That's what they always say, here with an open mind, so.
I, Frederick James, am here with an open mind.
Good.
I'm Scott Whalen here with an open mind.
I'm Bonnie Moser, here with an open mind.
Clay.
Clay Share, also here with an open mind. No communication to share.
Jeff Manera here with an open mind.
And Mark Breckville, I have had no ex parte communication, and my mind is wide open all the time, so we're good. So let's get all those that are going to be giving testimony, if you can please stand, raise your right hand, and be sworn in. And, okay.
Do you affirm that the evidence and testimony you're about to present will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yeah.
Thank you. Be seated.
Okay. So, Lee, let me ask you a question about this. Is it okay for the staff to summarize what's being requested? I mean, we've got a lot of data, so I'm just asking, can the staff summarize what the request is?
Yeah, I think you're going to have a presentation from our development director, Jody Kugler, over here, and she's got a presentation, and she's going to summarize the application. And I assume she's going to have some charts and graphs and some language up there that what's coming before you, and describe the project.
Okay, all right. Yeah, because I know some of us have seen this already at another meeting, and if there happened to be a commission meeting, it was been discussed. So I was just kind of, I think it's good if kind of we know what actually we're being asked to do and
Yeah,
what
so
the change is.
The development director is going to go first, and
Okay.
The applicant can supplement that if he or she
Okay.
wants to, and we'll go from there.
Okay, that's good.
All right,
Okay.
but you've got a script you can follow, and it's pretty easy. So,
Yeah, yeah, that's good, yeah. All right, so if you'd please present your testimony, and we'll go from there.
Good evening, board members. Congratulations on your new positions of vice chair and chair. For the record, my name is Jody Kugler, the development director with the city of Stewart. Tonight, I'm presenting agenda item number 4 for an amendment to the official zoning atlas from urban waterfront to urban highway zoning designation located at 255 Southwest 6th Street. For context, this 0.33 acre parcel at 255 Southwest 6th Street is currently vacant. The site is within the urban overlay district and is within the community redevelopment area. The future land use is downtown redevelopment, which general uses permitted include low-density residential, multifamily residential, office, commercial, recreation, lodging, public facilities, and conservation and mixed projects. And this just shows a current map of the downtown area in blue. As you can see, it's pretty consistent on the east side. Today, the existing zoning is urban waterfront, which refers to special waterfront-oriented uses, including marinas, restaurants, entertainment, hotels, and higher density residential. Existing marine industrials uses are conditionally permitted. And this just shows the location. As you can see, most of the area is in purple. The parcel that we're speaking of is circled in red and in blue. The applicant is requesting to propose the zoning to urban highway, and it occurs along both sides of Southeast Federal Highway as it traverses through the urban code district. This area allows for large front setbacks and high-oriented commercial or high-density residential uses with generous parking lots. This is also, just to kind of give you some background, as you can see, the proposed use would make it consistent along the corridor on the east side. This property, at one point in time, if you just look, and I'll put my cursor on it, and we're still doing some little bit more research, but when the urban code was adopted in 2002, this property right here was part of urban waterfront. Somewhere between 2002 to currently, this project was changed to urban highway. So that's why you see this particular property is along the waterfront, but the property that we're referring to is this property right here. This would make it consistent with the land use pattern and a zoning pattern and development pattern. This petition conforms to the criteria outlined in section 11.01.09 of the Stewart Land Development Code, Florida statutes, and is consistent with the goals, objectives, and policies of the City of Stewart Comprehensive Plan. Staff recommends that the Community Redevelopment Board forward a recommendation to the City of Stewart City Commission to approve the rezoning subject parcel from urban waterfront to urban highway. Just to give you some background, we did go to the local planning agency last week, and we were also at the City Commission. There was concerns from some surrounding residents, and even though we can't condition a rezoning application, the applicant has agreed to meet with the owners surrounding Channel Avenue just to kind of go over the plans once we can get some consistent guidelines. And this ends my presentation. I do have the applicant in the audience. If you have any questions for Nemish Patel.
Does the board have any questions? Is there any?
I have a few for Jody. Can you explain why the land use is needed? And I asked that, like, does the land use change allow the owner to do something different with the property? Are there requirements different for the property? And I mean, like, parking or landscape requirements or, hardscape, softscape requirements?
Vice Chair Mosher, this is not asking for a future land use amendment. They're asking for a rezoning.
Right.
So the land use is consistent. However, the design guidelines for urban highway and urban waterfront are not consistent.
Okay.
So they are looking to redevelop the project, the parcel. They've combined all 3 parcels as one unity of title. So with the urban highway, everything is to push forward toward the US 1 corridor. Urban waterfront has guidelines that parking has to be in the front and the building get pushed all the way to the rear. So there's some inconsistencies, and to make the pattern, the development pattern consistent, staff had recommended the applicant consider doing an amendment to rezone the property. And as you can see, we're, let me just put my cursor on that. Right here, this is the parcel that we're speaking of. The Patels have purchased this whole property and combined it. So if they were to try to combine both design guidelines, it's very inconsistent. So to make it, they're proposing a hotel, which is going to be pushed toward the front of US 1, and that is consistent throughout that corridor.
Okay.
I guess I have a similar question. I'm trying to understand the exact difference between its current zoning and application, what density would be allowed in excess with the future zoning, the proposed zoning? Would there be additional density involved, additional parking, additional density in that spot?
Remember, there would not be any difference with the density. It's just really just making the design lines consistent. Both zoning districts allow a hotel use, both allow density. It's just inconsistent with design guidelines within both districts. One says push it back, the other one says push it forward. To be consistent, pushing the building forward and having parking in the rear with some design elements to the building would be consistent along that corridor.
So it doesn't allow additional density or anything like that?
That is correct.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think based on all the information, Jody, you and the team, I think made a very sensible recommendation to simply change the zoning to make it more consistent. It's pretty straightforward, and it's probably just, I don't know the history, but it's kind of an oddity that piece was not consistent with the rest of it, but pretty straightforward to me, and yeah, it looks good.
Any other questions?
I guess I do. I heard that the applicant would talk with the other property owners that are around. If you approve the zoning, the change, will they have an input after that? Will there be any protections for them after that if they decided, I don't want this in my community?
Chair, board members, that's a good question. So the way our code is set up, that anything under 50,000 square feet is approved at administrative level, which would be at my level. However, the design guidelines are consistent regardless if it's approved through the city commission or through the administration. The applicant has agreed to meet with the owners along Fraser Creek and along Channel Avenue to address some of their concerns. So we will be, we've been in touch with the residents, and once we get the new plan submitted, we are going to have a neighborhood meeting with the neighbors to make sure that some of their concerns are addressed.
Thank you.
I just have a couple questions, Jody. I just want to clarify. So really, the staff kind of suggested this, right? Because this is one parcel that was inconsistent with everything around it, and they've kind of suggested you should make it consistent with everything, right? Isn't that really kind of how it came about?
Chair, that is correct.
Okay.
Just because of redevelopment purposes.
Right.
And if you notice, it kind of, the property is not even located along the waterfront.
Yeah.
There's another parcel in between that's been developed. So it doesn't meet the intent, probably from the 2002 guidelines. Like I said, right here, if you can see my cursor, this right here, this section in 2002 was urban waterfront. Somewhere down the line, it has been changed. So that's when this make this inconsistent.
And that whole spot that you're looking at there in yellow, that's all under unity of title, right? So you'd have one parcel that would be under one
Unified.
one use, and the
Yes.
other would, yeah. All right, so then the other question I had is that, assuming this was not approved, assuming that we don't go along with it, it doesn't stop them from doing what they're going to do. I mean, they can build what they want to build under the existing code. They may have to adjust where they put the parking, but otherwise, it doesn't stop the project, I guess is what I'm saying, correct? That it's not a situation where the zoning is going to make it so that now they can't do what they can't put a hotel on there where they could before, or something like that, right?
So typically, we don't talk about the site plan during rezoning, but yes, you are correct. Both districts allow for a hotel use.
Okay. And then, you know, the big question too that I have is that, so let's assume that, because at the commission meeting as well, you know, we're not supposed to really discuss the specific use, but I guess what I'm saying is there's a proposed use for it. So even if that use goes away, this doesn't really give another person some advantage in terms of development right now, right? Higher density levels or any kind of thing like that?
Chair, that is correct. If the hotel is, everything goes through as planned, and it's built as a hotel, and then for some reason, the owners sell the property and they don't want a hotel anymore, and they want to knock it down, or they want to remodel it to something else, they are required to come to the development department and do a new site plan. And some of it could be elevated up to a commission level based on what the type of use. But you just can't arbitrarily go in there and change the use without going through some type of process.
All right, so it would come back to the commission for them to decide potentially, or at
Yeah.
least to staff.
Yes, and particularly if they're asking for density.
Okay, okay. Any other questions from members? Okay, so let me see. Do we have any additional comments from the applicant? Okay. Okay. If I could get a motion,
I move to approve.
is there a second?
Second.
Okay, so I'd like to open it up in case the public has any kind of question, and the board also will discuss issues. But I'd like to get, if there's any public comment, I'd like to get that first before the board deliberates. Okay, no,
Chair, I have
See
no
you.
public comment.
do what?
I have no public comment.
Okay, all right, good. All right, we have a first and a second on a motion to approve. So we need a roll call because it's quasi, right?
Correct. Board Member James?
Yes.
Board Member Monero?
Yes.
Chair Brackbill?
Yes.
Vice Chair Moser?
Yes.
Board Member Scherer?
Yes.
And Board Member Whalen?
Yes.
All right, thank you. And I thank the applicant for being here and the staff for helping us get through that. Appreciate it. The next item, because we moved things around a little bit, has to do with item 5, zoning in progress, land development code text amendments. Leah,
I'll read it.
yeah, good, thank you.
And again, board members, you were in the quasi judicial hearing, and now we're going back, you're putting your legislative hat on.
Okay.
So now you're creating
Man.
they're amending the text of the land development code basically now, so now you're a legislator, all right?
All right.
Ordinance number 2539-2025, an ordinance of the City Commission of the City of Stuart, Florida, amending and restating City Land Development Code, Chapter 2, zoning districts, uses allowed, density, intensity, Chapter 3, special zoning codes, Chapter 5, resource protection-related development standards, and Chapter 6, on-site and off-site development standards, which were determined during the zoning in progress under Section 1.04.04 Stewart Land Development Code, providing for conflict, providing for codification, providing for an effective date, and for other purposes.
All right. You know, at this point, we've got, you know, a lot of material in here. I think that, and I think it's good for us as a board. This is one of the items that I think ultimately it'd be good for us to be able to go through in a workshop. The city's gotten, I think the commission has gotten, you know, through a lot of this stuff. You know, pretty soon I think it's extended till March, isn't it? Right now, March 4th or something like that. The zoning in progress. So,
Right now, yeah, we have to go to a second reading with the commission, but we're going before you today, and I think on Thursday, we go before the LPA with the same land development code. I think Jody will have a presentation and go over, she'll summarize the changes that have been proposed during the zoning in progress workshops, and looking for a recommendation on those changes to take to the Board of Commissioners.
Okay, that would be good. I started going through them myself, and I said, boy, I wish Jody was here.
Thank you. Again, my name is Jody Kruger. I'm the Development Director. Thank you for taking this time. I'm going to kind of go through the chapters that were mostly affected, and it's a working in progress because we're still working on the actual strike-through underlying zoning. But we did go through the chapters, and we'll explain to you some of the changes. But I wanted to offer to you that I found something, it's always unique when you can find history of the city of Stewart. This is a zoning map from 1978. You can see the boundaries really have not changed that much. So I just wanted to kind of show you that. And then also I found, when you get to do a lot of research, it's very fun. This is your first land development code that was adopted in 1940. So this was very interesting because when you're looking at some of the changes happened over the years, not much has changed other than adding in your urban districts and some of your overlays, but it seems to be the same intent back then as we have today. So I just wanted to kind of show you this, and you can see how they labeled the districts back then in 1940. This was adopted in March of 1940. I don't know about you, but I definitely wasn't around. So just to kind of give you some history. Okay. So now to the fun stuff. So a lot of the changes that happened was in Chapter 2 and in Chapter 6. That's where a majority of our changes that we're proposing that was requested by the City Commission during our very lengthy workshops. Some of them were that the commissioners requested that we change, instead of a lot, to call it a parcel record or a parcel. In the city of Stewart or in Martin County, anything that's assigned to, any type of land that's assigned to the Martin County has an assigned parcel number. Even though it may not have an address, but it does have a parcel number, so they call it a parcel record. So since we are pretty much a built-out city, we thought it was consistent to say instead of lot, because some lots that are platted, some people have had combined them and had 3 lots to make a very nice backyard or have that open space in their residential homes. So we have modified the code to say parcel record or parcel. So you'll see a lot of that cleanup language in Chapter 2, Chapter 3, Chapter 6, Chapter 4, 5, and 8. So you'll see a lot of that strike through. Some of the other things that
So the word lot doesn't exist there anymore.
Correct. We are no longer, so anything that's after September 4th, everything is going to be grandfathered in, meaning that if you have a lot of record or a parcel record, what we're going to call it now, before it used to call a lot of record. Now we're going to call it a parcel record. That is essentially the word. I don't like to say grandfathered because there's really, but in your world, you hear a lot of it's grandfathered in. So you may have only one parcel record, but you may have 3 lots that combine that. So as of September 4th, 2024, all lots are considered grandfathered in, regardless if they have a structure or they don't have a structure or they get damaged, they could rebuild the structure that's currently there today. So that was one of the biggest change that the City Commission made. The other change that's probably very, very significant is that they did no shared parking throughout the city, including the urban area. So so some of those, you'll see those changes where we will not have shared parking. Anything that referred to shared parking has now been strike through.
Could you give an example of shared parking? What does that mean?
So in the urban area, there's a lot of places that don't meet all their parking requirements, but their neighbors next door may have 2 parking spaces, so they can have a shared parking agreement, and they can utilize their parking. So typically, it works really well with a restaurant next door or in a doctor's office. So a lot of times, doctor's office, we all know, is busy during the day, but a restaurant doesn't start their clientele till about 4 o'clock. So they'll do that shared parking. So the board wanted to amend that to just say that they have to park according to the guidelines. So that's one of the other significant changes that the board did make. Also, in your mixed-use zoning districts, any type of shared parking or anything that's, and I'll just kind of scroll down so it kind of helps you out, but there's a lot of scrolling, but I just wanted to show you some of the significant changes. As you'll see, and I apologize if I'm going too fast, if you get dizzy, let me know, because I do have seizures, so. Hold on one second. And I will explain some of this. These are your tables that have, one of the other changes they did make too, and since I came to this this is your permitted use charts that's allowed in each district. So if it has a P, it's permitted by rights. So one of the things that they felt is that all warehouses or storage facilities or wholesale and distribution centers should be located only in your industrial areas. So that was a change that they made. And as you can see, that we crossed through the permitted uses in the other districts and added it into the industrial as a permitted use by rights. Also, we did add some language because some of these will say A or they'll say conditional use. A lot of people, whenever they ask, what is allowed through the city commission public hearing process, what does that mean? So we said by resolution, just to kind of give it a little bit more clarification. So in your mixed use or your floor area, one of the things that they had a lot of concerns about when you're looking at a mixed use project that has commercial and it has residential combined together, there should be some type of mix that if you're allowed a certain amount of commercial area, then you should be a reduction of square footage for each unit. So if you, and this says 800, but I do believe it ended up at 1,000 square feet. So every 1,000 square feet of commercial, you lose a reduction of one density unit as part of your calculation if you're looking at a larger site. So that was one of the significant changes that they did make. So and I hate to use Costco as one of my examples, but it is one of our larger pieces. And so we do have one more large piece, and I don't know if you're familiar with the Fountains, that's east, that's just south on US 1. It's that large 24-acre site on the east side.
Which one is that?
It's called the Fountains, it's by Dominica Terrace. There's a huge, that's one of our, probably our largest property that was a commercial plan unit development. It has expired, so we've had a lot of interest in there. So if they come in and they want to do mixed use, commercial and residential, one of the things that the city commission was concerned about was instead of using gross acres for your commercial portion of it and using gross acres for your density, so you get all your density, you get all your commercial, they wanted to add some formula in there that you would reduce, if you're allowed 1,000 square feet of commercial, you lose 1 unit per 1,000 square feet of commercial that you add. So even though if you're only allowed 30 units and you have 10 acres of commercial, it'd be 1 unit per 1,000. So this would be really on our larger sites. In the city of Stewart, we don't have a lot of vacant sites. Probably the Fountains, we refer to as the Fountains because that was the old name of it. That's probably the largest site we have right now that's vacant, that we get a lot of interest in. So also, there were some changes made back in, I do believe, 2019, where you could do these potential bonus units, where it typically was down the urban area where you could do what's considered half units, and then you get parking requirements or reductions because you have half units, and so if you're allowed 30 units per acre, you're allowed 45 units per acre because you count the unit as a half unit. So the board was really concerned about that, so they're asking to strike that language. So we did do that. Let's see here. Some of this is just cleanup language. Again, these are density bonuses where mixed use are available. they felt that density bonuses are no longer needed for mixed-use PUDs. So the same thing, they could have smaller units, almost like those half units. So, and like I said, we don't have a lot of land left in City of Stuart, so it really would only apply to larger sites. And like I said, we only have like 20-acre large site that's pretty much vacant at this time for that type of use. Some of these, this is where the multifamily, this is the formula right here. And some of these I do have highlighted because once I go over this with the commissioners at the first reading, I just want to make sure I have clarification that this is exactly what we heard, because there was a lot. They had a lot of meetings and they had a lot of workshop, and they were many hours that they put into this. So I just want to make sure that we captured everything that they were requesting. So if you see some highlighted, it's probably some questions that staff still kind of has on to ask the City Commission. And as the other significant change was in your R3, we changed the lot size to 5,000 square feet, or it could be 5,000 or 6,000. I wasn't sure exactly where they landed, but there'll be no longer a 4,356 square feet lot.
Lot or parcel?
Oh, parcel, I'm sorry. I'm getting used to saying that myself. So again, we do have to work on some language on this, but we did want to make sure that anybody who has parcels of record, they were protected. So if you have a property that has 4,356 square foot lot, and they had a parcel signed before the September 4th, 2024 date, that parcel is a buildable parcel. So we just wanted to make sure that was safeguarded. And that's throughout the city. The other thing was in your commercial, instead of 65% impervious surface, if they can demonstrate, they can have 50%, because we want to encourage to use low impact development, which is what we refer to as LIDs. You do your permeable pavers, you do your French drains, so you get credit for that later on in the code. So, it's hard to get credit, and then you're having to put 65% of your maximum impervious surface coverage for commercial. Again, some cleanup with the lot versus parcel. So this is where we really focused in on to make sure that when you're looking at these parcels, that we wanted to make sure it was very clear. Again, there's another note about that no platted parcel record shall contain less than 4,000, actually this needs to be changed, less than it should be either 5,000 or 6,000 square feet that existed on or before September 4th, 2024. And any newly created parcel records shall contain not less than 6,000 square feet after September 4th, 2024. Again, this is question to the commissioner did we land on 5,000 or 6,000? So there's some clarification that we're looking for from the board. Same thing, this is just basically cleanup language. If you have any questions along the way, please stop me or ask the questions, because we have quite a few chapters that I'm going to be scrolling through and just kind of identify what we did. Again, some more cleanup language. Let's see here. And the cottage lots, we're changing them to cottage parcels. So, and we do have to update the rendering showing what a cottage parcel will look like, so this has to be changed. But I have to image it out and put it back in and mark it up, so I have a note to do that. Let's see here. Don't know if this will be pretty much chapter 2.
Jody, was there something on the agenda packet, the side setbacks? It was chapter 2.04.04. Side setback should be a minimum of 10 feet. What does that apply to?
So I do believe, and this is one of the questions we have to raise back to the board, because there was some inconsistency going back and forth, and so the setbacks will be for residential, for R1, R2. So they, right now, some of them are 5 feet, some of them are 10 feet, and some of them are 7.5. I think they were looking for consistency. However, one of our concerns, if we change those setbacks and you have a built-out neighborhood, you're going to have that inconsistent pattern of how the houses are placed. So we did have some questions to raise back to the board about that particular, were they looking to change it throughout the single family, or, so we weren't quite sure. So we do have a question back to the board that we will be raising on Monday.
After you scroll through everything, can
Yes.
you go back through and highlight any major things that are still under contention or under
Sure,
consideration?
absolutely.
Yeah,
Mhm.
because the things that are most relevant now, as
Right.
opposed to, the history is fascinating, but,
Yeah.
okay.
Like I said, this is chapter 2, so I don't know if these, so there was a request that that one of our constituents asked about home occupations, if they could use their accessory dwelling unit as a home occupation. So like if you wanted to put a salon, or if you wanted to put your little office in your ADU, the board would be, it would be allowed approved through a conditional use permit. So we did add language for that. Let's see here. Again, just some cleanup language. Not too much more change in chapter 2. Let me just check my notes real quick. I just want to see if there's any questions that we're going to pose back to the board. So there was some questions about the duplexes on Flamingo. So apparently when they were annexed into the city, they were annexed as R1. So there was some language that they requested us to add in there, that they can no longer expand. It's a non-conforming use. So if the duplex was destroyed or 50% damaged, they would not be able to rebuild. And we just wanted to make sure that that was the intent of the board.
And that's specifically to Flamingo, or is that city?
That was specifically to Flamingo.
Okay.
So we do have questions to the board to raise if that was the intent. We do have language in our code that does talk about a nonconformity, and also if it's substantially damaged, there is a formula, and then they wouldn't be able to expand the nonconforming use.
Those duplexes, at least in Fisherman's Village, or as I think nearby where you're talking about, I don't know if that's in there. It's where I live right now, but those were sold originally as single units. I mean, you bought both sides, and then a lot of people, though, they've been split, and so there's one owner that owns one side, and one owner that owns the other.
Mm-hmm.
So is that going to go away? Are those not going to be considered single family anymore? And you can't, I mean, what happens if somebody, I guess, what happens?
So essentially what happens is, if that was the intent of the board, the zoning today there is R1, which means you only have one unit or one primary. So what happens over time, you won't be able to expand the duplex, and if it gets 50% damaged, then there is a formula that you can only replace a certain amount within 3 years. If not, if it has to be torn down for some reason, you would only be able to build a single-family home.
How do two owners settle that?
Yeah, right, of course.
Own the real estate.
Yeah, I mean, why can't we just change the zoning or create a zoning for duplexes? I mean, that's crazy that you might lose your house because your neighbor got torn down. I don't think anybody wants that.
And that's something that's why we're going over this. That's why I want to, if you want to recommend something to the board, we can certainly put that as one of your recommendations, that maybe you put a some type of special district, or if you want to, if you want to express some concerns, we can definitely express that to the board.
All right.
Or make
You mentioned,
recommendations.
think you mentioned the street name Flamingo. Is that where these are? I'm just wondering, what is that, the
That's a-
neighborhood? Is it called
These are
Flamingo?
different. No, Flamingo's a street, so there are duplexes on a few blocks away. Flamingo is a couple blocks away. It's mostly single-family, but there are some duplexes on the street. I'm not sure, maybe 5
Oh,
or
okay.
6.
You know how many duplexes we're talking about?
I don't know, but we can certainly get
Yeah.
a tally of that as
I
well.
just walked it this morning. It's got to be less than 10.
Okay.
Yeah, I do have a question. So what benefit for those homeowners or those people that own the properties for the language to be changed from lot to parcel?
So again, in Martin County, every parcel, every lot, or I should say parcel, is assigned a property control number, regardless if you have a address or not assigned to that parcel. So that makes it a parcel record and for your tax purposes and everything. So being that the cities are built out, if you have a parcel of record, meaning you have an identification number, that makes your lot conforming as of September 4th of last year. So if you have a lot, so they don't want to create more lots, in the city, so, or the smaller lots. So if you have a house that sits on 3 lots, you tear it down, and now you want to subdivide 3 different lots back to the original platted lines, now you're adding more density to that area. So if you have a platted lot of record, or a parcel record, then it is considered grandfathered in. That was the intent of why they wanted to go with a parcel record as opposed to an actual lot.
Is there a reason we have to do that at this time? Was there a rush to have this done with this language put in?
So the city commission deemed a zoning in progress back in September last year. They had multiple workshops, and this is some of the concerns that they were discussing. One of them is density, because we are a built-out community there. So that was one way to control some of the density or smaller lots. So the city commission had multiple meetings, and this is one of the outcomes of the meeting that they asked staff to look at.
I enjoyed the fact that you were sharing the history. The community where I live, it's a rich history, and a lot of the people that are members of my church own some of the smaller lots. And so I'm concerned what's going to happen if we change that language to those people without them having greater input before we make that decision.
So, and I'm going to refer to, I'm assuming East Stewart is where you're referring to with the smaller lots.
Yes.
So that was one of the things that the board was very concerned, making sure that East Stewart or these areas that have smaller lots, if you have a smaller lot and you have a parcel record, because you have to have a parcel record to pay your taxes. So that's the background of why they use parcel record as opposed to a lot. Because you can have multiple lots and only have one parcel record. So we wanted to make sure that East Stewart or the smaller communities or any larger lots, they're not subdivided to the smaller lots. So in East Stewart, they will be grandfathered in as of September 4th that they have a parcel record, which in East Stewart, everybody has a parcel record because you have to pay your taxes. That will grandfather their size lot within the city.
Can I ask a question on that? Sometime in the last year, I think Pinal presented a program to us where there were some people in East Stewart who maybe because there were so many family members, there was not a deed or a homeowner or I don't know. Sorry, I'm not really good at planning.
Clear deed.
A clear deed. What happens to them if, as of September, they don't have that? Does that mean, does that put their lot size at risk if they're not if they're not that 5,000 square feet?
Well, either if they don't have a clear deed or not, they still will have a parcel record. They still have to pay it still will have an assigned parcel ID number.
Okay.
It just doesn't have a clear deed, and I think that is the program that, yeah.
Okay. So if that's not figured out, the parcel is still there, so we're not
Yes.
worried about any loss with that?
Yes,
Okay.
and there is some smaller lots, and East Stewart, and that was one of the concerns that the board did have, to make sure that, you know, what's the inventory today remains the inventory. So any newly created lots as of September 4th will have to be evaluated and have to go through some type of board action at that time. So it technically it will stay that, it will remain that, you know, so I'm just trying to give you some assurance that the board didn't want to just do a taking and take the property rights. You still can build on those smaller lots today if you have a parcel record.
But what happens if it turns out you had a parcel of record, but then it turns out that somebody else owned one of those lots that's in your parcel? Or, in other words, if there's no clear title, the tax records may show that you have a parcel, but it may turn out after the fact that one of those lots was left to one family member, one of those lots was left to another family member, and they had actually separate lots. Same parcel, but separate lots, because that's the problem with not having clean title. The risk you take is you go in there and buy it, and it turns out a portion of your property doesn't belong to you. So, you know, I still have a little bit of concern about that
I'm
personally.
gonna, if Lee, can you help me with that answer, please?
I don't know that I have an answer for you on that.
Yeah.
Because it's something that's really abnormal that would happen. One of the issues are the lots are very small in East Stewart. And like Jody said, if there is already a house on it, there is a parcel of record with the county. The whole point of lot versus parcel is to be consistent. You could have 2 or 3 lots in one parcel of record. So, you know, it's the parcel that we're focused on, not necessarily the platted lot from years ago, because your house could be 2 lots. Have 2 platted lots, 1 parcel of record, and 1 house. And it's kind
But
of.
later on, you couldn't split that into 2 lots
Like-
if they were under 5,000 square
Again,
feet. Or 6 out.
if if under our code, we're calling it a lot, but there's 2 lots, platted
Yeah.
lots from years ago that are
Okay.
small lots. Someone did a unity of title and built a big house on 2 lots that were like 4,000 square feet each. Now they have an 8,000 square foot each. That's 1 parcel of record, even though if you look at the old platted lots, would be multiple lots. And to be consistent, we were just trying to, sometimes our code would refer to the lot, but that parcel record had 2 lots and 1 house on it.
And let me,
So
let me ask you, Lee,
That was creating an issue.
weren't the original city lots, the platted city lots are what, 50 by 100? Aren't they 5,000 square feet, I think?
I don't know.
I think they are. So that's kind of right at the borderline. I mean, I know downtown, the lots are generally 50 by, I think
I
they're
mean,
50
I
by
can
100.
even, I remember even looking down Riverside Drive and like houses are on 3 lots. And
Yeah.
then another house is on half that lot. It's really,
Yeah,
you know, but the parcel of record is what the county goes by and actually what we're going, it just seems like our code had lots versus parcel of record, and that was causing some issues in interpretation. So that was another reason, I don't think she mentioned as to why we were changing it to parcel of record.
okay, all right.
And I hope that clarifies it.
Yeah, I think so.
Thank you, Mr. Baggett.
Sorry, Jody, go ahead.
That's okay. I mean, and please stop me if you have any questions, because I want to make sure that this board can make the recommendations to the city commission or express some concerns of some of the changes that they're requesting. Or if you're not clear on something, I want to make sure that we can address it as staff. We may not be able to address it tonight, but we do want to make sure that we hear your concerns.
Okay, do you want questions now then? Is that what you're saying? Or?
No, I'm just saying,
Okay.
as we move along, if you
Okay.
have any questions, I'd rather, talk about it, because, like I said, we have like a couple other chapters.
Okay.
Have we gotten to ADUs yet within this chapter?
We did not get to ADUs.
Okay.
So one of the things that the board did express with ADUs, and if you're accessory dwelling units, is how do we stop people from renting them out or Airbnb-ing them? We are preempted from the state that we can't control Airbnbs because we didn't have rules prior to that. So they did put in here some guidelines that an ADU will have, the owner will have to live in the primary, and then the ADU has to have 1 meter and one water meter.
Sorry, can you clarify what an ADU is?
Oh, okay. It's an accessory dwelling unit, so if you have a house and then you have a detached garage and you want to convert it into like a granny flat or something, or a mother-in-law.
apartment.
So, you know, this will give you the privilege to be able to have your mother or your father aging in place, you know, instead of putting them in the nursing home that I hope my kids will never do to me. But anyways, but one of the concerns is we didn't want more traffic down these residential streets or transient traffic. So the accessory dwelling units will now be on 1 meter, 1 electrical meter, and 1 water meter. So it has to be attached to the primary, and the owner of the property has to live in the primary unit. And in other places I've worked, so whenever you go get these building permits, because one of the biggest things is how do you enforce that?
Right.
So in other places I worked at the building department level, they make them sign an affidavit stating that, yes, this is, you know, ADU, this is really, you know, for my mother-in-law, or when I have guests come in, I don't want my family staying with me in my house, so I want them to stay out there. So they sign an affidavit, and then what happens is if you, later on, and they kind of find out that they're renting them and turning them into other uses than what they were intended to, you can code enforce against the owner of the property.
Yeah, I mean, do we know even if you can get separate meter, you know, just 1 meter on some of these things? Because a lot of times, like, let's say I'm taking care of a parent, they're both dead now, but let's say I'm taking care of a parent, you know, I need to know what their costs are sometimes because I'm being reimbursed by, you know, some medical coverage or some trust agreement or something else. And it's just, it gets really messy when you've only got 1 meter for a full piece of property, you know? And I mean, even if I had my son in there, if he's got the AC at 43 degrees or something, I want him to pay that, you know? I think that's it gets a little tight there, but anyway.
Yeah, I agree with you. I want to zoom out a little because what I've been following what the commission's been talking about here, and it seems like it's this really big push to, you know, only promote single-family development within the city. I think it's pretty clear that most people don't want like large housing developments around here. But ADUs are what we call incremental development. They're these small things that can allow, you know, folks to maybe rent out a studio space. They're not going to cause a huge influx of traffic. That's not going to happen. But I'm going to use my own lot for an example. My husband and I have, when we were looking for homes in Stewart, we were looking for homes with an ADU because we were looking for a place where one of our sets of parents could possibly age in place. I know a lot of people my age who are thinking the same thing. We don't want our parents to go live in a nursing home. That's really expensive. You know, I ended up buying a single-family lot, and I've got plenty of space to put an ADU. It would cost me a lot of money to do it. One of the things we talked about, well, what if we rent, you know, this ADU out to a teacher to offset the cost for 5-10 years until our parents need to move in? You're taking that option away from people. And I'm not saying this to be self-serving. We'll probably never do that. It's just an example. I think it's a little bit of overreach. And same thing, what Mark is saying, like if I do have a parent there and I'm needing to know their costs, what that cost is, and they're on the same, what is it called? They're on the same meter as me. I can't do that. You know, if I did want to rent it out to a teacher, and that teacher does like to keep the air on 60, and is, you know, just using a lot of energy, I would prefer that to be their responsibility and not mine. I think we've really got to think here about, you know, are ADUs and duplexes the bad guy? Are they really what is causing, you know, the heaps of traffic that we're seeing through Stewart? Or is it cars from Port St. Lucie and from Palm Beach County passing through our city? I think we really need to zoom out here, and I'm going to get a little bit off topic really quickly, Jody, but I just want to say, because I have said this to the commission repeatedly in emails, this process has been really backwards. It has been from the top down, and it has not been from the bottom up. Those workshops were not workshops. They were commissioners sitting in the front of the room with microphones, and people got to make a little bit of input, but the general public doesn't understand planning. I work planning adjacent, and I don't understand planning. This should have been done with professionals that were hired. No offense to the city, you all are wonderful. But when we make these changes, we're usually hiring planners and economists and people from the outside to come in and say, you know, this is the unintended consequence of what you're asking for, or, you know, this is what we're hearing the public say, this is how we funnel it into a change within our codes. I mean, I personally would like to see the city go back to the drawing board and actually do this the right way. And they should be hosting meetings with the public within the community, reaching out to the community, and then that feedback is brought back to the commission with the proposed changes and not the other way around, because I think we're missing the mark here about, you know, what people are actually wanting. And I am confident that the commission is trying to give it to them, but they're not the professionals that need to be making the numbers changes here and the verbiage changes here.
Okay. I have one basic question, and, you know, kind of based on what Bonnie said, but I guess the question I have is, as this board, CRB, how much of this applies to us? I mean, aren't we under a different zoning than all of this? I mean, a different setup? We're under urban code, right? So all of these things are great, and this is kind of what the comment I was making at the beginning. I think all those things are great, and it's you know, it's one more forum for people to make a comment, I guess. But I'm just saying, for the CRB, I'm not sure that we have input into this because it doesn't affect us. I mean, I think this is all outside the urban code.
It affects East Stewart.
It's affecting Stewart, but we don't have responsibility.
East Stewart.
Well, but that is a part of the CRA, but that they have their own code out there too that's been done.
Am I
And-
understanding correctly, though, that these changes would affect that?
It's going to check,
an overlay,
it
correct?
affects
That's
the
how it's-
entire city. So your shared parking will be affected throughout the entire city, not just your urbanized area, not just your Creek District, not just your East Stewart, or the US 1 properties along, you know, the corridors there.
So and that's a problem I have, is I got involved in a little bit of an issue with a friend of mine that I helped her with. And all she wanted to do was put a parking, Jody, you know, she wanted to put a
Yes.
parking space. Now, she didn't go about it the right way necessarily, but she wanted to put a parking space on her property, right? And what I found when I got into that is that the urban designations are all assuming gigantic things. They're assuming density, parking lots, and all kinds of stuff. And so there's a completely different, I mean, the language in the urban code relative to even single-family residential needs to be different, because the other stuff won't let you do things that you would normally do with your home, because you got to have a 6-foot fence or with trellises and all kinds of good things. So I think we're being thrown in. CRA's got it. I do think CRA has to look at this differently. We have to be zoned differently, and if we're not, I think we need to change the comp plan, because the comp plan encompasses all of the things that we talk about with mixed use and walkability and all that kind of thing. I remember those meetings back in the day when we discussed all that, when we decided how we were going to be as a community. I think we got to go back to that. I mean, at least the thing that they did right back then was they got everybody involved, and they said, okay, what do we want to see, what don't we want to see? And they didn't all agree, but I tell you, a lot of the stuff that's built into our comp plan is going to change then, because this thing is different.
And that was what I was going to bring up as well. So some of these changes will require comp plan amendments.
Yeah.
So,
Quite a
and
bit.
it could change the visionary for certain areas.
Well, and it's potentially going to create a situation where we're going to have to completely rethink the core of the comp plan. Is the idea behind the comp plan that we put density in the city so that it doesn't go out west into the into the western acreage. That was the original plan for Stewart as well as Martin County. So are we going away from that? Are we not going to create that density with walkability and places where we have businesses and places you can live in the same location so you don't have to take your car someplace? That was all part of the comp plan. I'm surprised that, we're that far away from that. I think we're going to have to relook at that if we're making these changes. It's just my opinion. Anyway, all right, sorry.
No, thank
Before we
you.
go any farther, sorry, can we back up to the parking portion that, you brought it up in the very beginning, with the no shared parking throughout? I just want to put a pin in that's something that we could possibly make a recommendation about. I'm a little concerned with the consequences of what happens there. That is a strategy that cities all over the country use. I work in the Southeast a lot. A lot of times, partnerships will be formed with churches because churches only need their parking lots downtown on Sundays and maybe Wednesday nights. And for the rest of the week, they'll form a partnership with somebody so that the rest of the city can use that when they want to go to businesses downtown. It works really well. It also keeps your downtown from becoming a parking lot. And fly around in Google Earth and look at successful cities. The ones that are failing right now are the ones that are flooded with parking. It shouldn't be the priority, and I'm a little concerned that that's the direction that we're headed in. It essentially just makes downtown a hot parking lot. But I'm reading about these parking, not just here with the no shared parking, but I'm just reading about this increase in parking that we want to see. And I'm worried that one of the unintended consequences is we're going to end up with really big redevelopments. So, you've got a developer and they've got a lot of money and they don't buy, the parcel and put a smaller apartment complex on it because they can't park it. So they buy a block. And we end up with, city place developments, even though we don't want that because that's what we're telling them that we want. So I would like that to go back to the commission for them to
Reconsider.
understand.
I think, Bonnie, that's a good comment because it's about the economics. They will build what they can make money building. And so if we make it so that the small builder, the local homeowner can't build the property because it takes too much to buy, the base, you're right.
Yeah.
We're going to get developers that are going to come in from out of state, Wall Street developers who are going to buy. That's the same thing we got now. And, and it's millions and millions of dollars. So they can afford to do it, and we're going to get stuff we don't want. Nobody wants any of that. So I agree. I think that's something we got to look at. The other thing is on the parking situation, Jody, we already have stuff that's approved. And I can think of very specific sites where they already have been approved and they don't meet the parking requirement as it is now. I drove by last night a restaurant there on East Ocean that has outdoor seating, right? They went from being able to seat 7 or 8 people. There were 900 square feet. There for a restaurant, they could only have about 9 or 10 people in that thing. And last night there was probably 35, 40 people there, maybe more. And so now when the lot gets developed next to that, because that's already been approved under a PUD, where's the parking going to go? You can talk all you want about parking, and there's 2 types of parking. There's required parking to build, and there's parking to be able to get by. And so I understand the shared parking can be abused, and it has been. But the problem is now what's going to happen to the guy that's left, the person that's left? Are they going to get stuck because somebody else, you may be able to build your project, but your people aren't going to be able to find any parking. So I think that's an issue they have to look at, what's already in place. The shared parking situation is going to significantly penalize the future use, and it's going to favor the PUDs over the local builders. So I think they need to look at that in that situation. Is you got to take into consideration what's there.
Thank
Anyway.
you.
Anybody else
could
have any
just-
comments or questions for Jody, and we'll keep going, but, all right.
I think I'm going to move to Chapter 3, because that is in the CRA district, and there was some changes in that district as well.
Which one?
The CRA, the overlay districts, the urban,
Okay.
this is where this board does have a lot of recommendations that they could bring to
Right.
the commission.
Just wanted to say, I agree with what Bonnie, where direction she was going, where if we structure everything where it's more appealing to the big developers, that they can just take from the other parking that's around there, they're gonna end up with an increased density we didn't really expect or want. I mean, that's gonna be part of the process.
So again, in your urban districts, which includes East Stewart, your Creek District, all the urban elements, again, they're requesting no shared parking. Also, they're changing the parking spaces for any duplexes to be, instead of 1.5, to round it up to 2 parking spaces. And any multifamily, round up to 2.5 for a parking space. So I think the significant change is in your East Stewart, where you have, let me just, and I apologize if I'm just going to go through this really quickly, because a lot of the same comments are consistent throughout the code. It just was cleaning it up. This is right here in your urban center. I do believe that was the location that you were at previously, Chair. About shared parking, again, they're asking that to be strike through. So these are all your urban districts. This is the core of your CRA. But they did make some recommendations in our East Stewart district that if you are a zone of BMU, which is a business mixed use occupancy, or if you're in a GROW, which is a like office residential and duplexes, that anything other than a single family home it will have to be required to have city commission action. So I'm gonna get to that, and I apologize. Now, the exempt parking area, they did not do anything to that, because that was, that area, which you can see right here, is just this little map right here. This is your exempt area. So parking is exempt in just this particular area within your CRA or your urban area. But if you don't mind, I'm just going to scroll down to my East Stewart. Again, these are the changes that are asking for duplexes. They were at 1.5 to 2 vehicles per unit, and then multifamily is 2 per unit instead of the 1.5. And I apologize, I keep going fast, but I just want to touch base of where this board would make.
Yeah, can we make a note for that, for the commission as well? I think maybe they're trying to protect East Stewart from developers or gentrification, and I think that is a valiant effort, but we've got to protect East Stewart. But I'm going to say the same thing about this. I worry that if you're going to make these big increases, you're asking for developers with more money in their pocket to make the changes. So you might get the exact thing that you don't want to happen there by making it more expensive to build there.
Okay. And I'm just noting that these are some of the concerns, so when I look at my notes tomorrow, I won't have to go back and listen to the tape. Okay.
What happens when the parking garage finally gets built? How does that get factored into the parking requirements downtown? Will the parking requirements change then at that point? If we've got a parking garage downtown that's got, say, 400 parking places, you know, how will that, do I still have to maintain, you know, an additional 50 parking places on my property, because even if I'm next door to the parking garage, because that's what this says, or can that be changed, or do you have to do PUD at that point and go ask for a variance?
So currently, the way the changes are designed today, that whatever is on your parcel of record and you're required to park, you're going to be, you cannot use any type of shared parking to offset your parking requirements.
Okay.
So if you have
So
I'm
there's a
just,
400 parking garage next to my house downtown, and I still got to have 50 on
adequate
my
parking,
side.
correct. That is how it is structured, the requested changes.
Do you know, Jody, how many downtowns anywhere have that kind of requirement? I mean, successful downtowns, small ones. I mean, can we look around? I mean, are they actually doing that where they're making, they're making people park all this stuff, and then how do they expand? You just can't. And then it gets to what Bonnie's saying. The only people that can do these are the rich people. They'll come in, the developers will come in, they'll finance it from Wall Street. That's why nothing's being built right now, because there's no money on Wall Street. But as soon as there's money, we talk here about, and that's why I was asking the question about the urban area. So is that an area that's covered under 102? Can I go into downtown Stewart and buy up, 3 blocks and put a parking garage in? What is that included in that? Is that considered like commercial, where the state law now says if I put in a certain amount of affordable housing, I can build this stuff? I mean, are we creating that where that's what's going to be the alternative, that the developers that are going to come in are going to want to maximize their density, to maximize their return on investment? I'm just concerned about that. I just can't believe successful cities are positioning themselves the way we are,
So Senate Bill 102 that you're referring to, technically, if they're going to combine parcel records, it would require some type of action by the city commission. And also, they would still have to park it based on the codes that there are any changes that are being made. So if you were required only 1.5 at one point in time, or you were allowed shared parking with your neighbors next door, or you're allowed to do the off-street parking requirements in downtown, that will no longer be based on the proposed changes today. You have to park it on site. So potentially you would have to go through some type of action to the city commission to combine those lots and develop those lots or those parcels.
But if those lots are if they're already developed into a parcel, right? So just the project we were talking about, the hotel, or that parcel. So, 3 years from now, I take that, tear that all down, and I go ahead and put, 200 units there, whatever I can put on there, 16 per, under 102, 16 per unit. That's going to become a real thing, because, the project on US 1 North, I forget, Axis 1 or whatever it was, that project, I think it was built for probably 40 or 50 million. They turned around and refinanced that thing for $110 million on Wall Street and pulled that money out. That's the kind of money we're talking about. And that's what now we're going to create a situation where the competition for our local builders and our local developers and people who want are going to be Wall Street. Well, you can't compete with that. The only thing that's competing with that right now is that market is dead, because those guys want 13% after inflation. And right now, you're talking about you'd have to get a 20% return. And so as soon as that goes away, though, it makes sense for me to go buy whatever parcel I want in Stewart and tear it down and build 4 stories, maximum apartments, maximum density, because that's where I'm going to be able to make the big money. And I can't do that. I can't afford to build the small stuff. So if I want to build 3 units, I'm going to be out of the market. I can't do that. I'm going to be competing against Wall Street. I don't think we want that. It's just my opinion. I mean, when I was walking around talking to people, that's kind of what they said. They don't want that stuff.
Just for clarification, Mark, when I do downtown redevelopment or master plans, we have never recommended getting rid of those parking partnerships. We usually recommend them. And small, medium, large size cities, some states are even getting rid of parking requirements downtown because they realize how much it has hindered growth of the small business owner. So it seems a little bit backwards to what, our residents want.
How do condos affect this? So if I go on to let's say I build a 3-story condominium association, how does that impact it? I mean, each one of those units is a single-family home. So am I going to be bound by the single-family home requirement? Am I bound by? is that going to change based on that, if it's a
So
condominium?
if it's a condo form of ownership, that's typically one common wall, so that's going to be multifamily. So you're required to park it right now at 2 parking spaces per unit.
So what has been our affordable housing, when you go down East Ocean and you see all those condos there, that is our affordable housing, and it's all of the, generally older people that live down there and have owned those units forever. We're not going to be able to replace that housing because you can't build that anymore, right? Not to that density level. The stuff like Vista Pines and all that, they won't be allowed anymore under the new code, right? Because you won't have enough parking.
Right, I mean, essentially, we are built out, so yes, your answer would be yes.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay. Let me just get down to the East Stewart portion, because that's where some of the changes did take, the requested changes. I apologize, I should have had this done. Okay, so this is our recently adopted form-based code for East Stewart. We adopted it in 2023. Our board, our CRA worked on it for 2 years. And we've had a couple of houses being built through the East Stewart based on the design guidelines. We also have a project coming through that's Project Lift that's going to be meeting the same guidelines as well. So we've seen some redevelopment in East Stewart. One of the biggest changes is that, we kind of took this initiative on ourselves. This is all the different boards that you have to attend to if you want a variance, and some of them were redundant. Some of them went to the CRB, then you went to the LPA, then you went to the City Commission. So the CRB is your local planning agency within the CRA. So we felt it was appropriate to remove some of the LPA requirements except for the variance. So these are just some minor changes. I think the larger changes you're going to see in here is, let me just get down to the chart. So as you can see, all the permitted uses on our left side and all the districts are across our BMU, GRO, and single-family district. So before, duplexes were permitted by rights, and according to this section, which is, that section refers to architectural elements or design guidelines. That is now going to be approved through a resolution through a public hearing through the City Commission. So, and same thing with all these other types of uses. So your hotel, motel, your rooming, your board. So we just essentially went down. The only thing that's going to be permitted by rights without having to go through some type of board action is a single-family home.
I just want to say I got a call from a resident of East Stewart today who had major concerns with this section, the hoops that residents would have to, or folks who own businesses there would have to jump through. The extra work that they have to commit, it seems unfair, and it sort of is taking their power away. I've attended some of these workshops when this was being written, and it was overwhelmingly community members, and I understand not everyone's happy with the result of it, but that was a community-led process, and this is not. These changes are not.
If I could just, maybe the page or two up that you were, I was looking at that, and I'm just curious, what was the logic behind the effort why targeting this particular residential neighborhood with all of these requirements versus any other residential neighborhood? Why the change here?
So if I understood correctly, the board wanted to safeguard any large development coming into East Stewart and purchasing a bunch of parcels and creating a huge row house of multifamily units.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that was one of the intent, or if a hotel motel with the potential with the train station coming through, they wanted to make sure that they protected the residents within East Stewart to keep it somewhat single-family. I think that was the intent. And maybe this is not where they land, but I think they had some concerns about some of the older residents that have been lifers there, and they, they have the homes that, that were passed down by generations, and they wanted to make sure that they protected their property.
I guess my concern still would be, they had good intent, but they missed the mark. And I agree that they need to go back and reevaluate with the community, with the conversation.
I think you're going to get the exact opposite of what you're shooting for, because again, and I talked to some people a number of years back, Phil Harvey, some other guys, we talked about this concept, and the problem with this is that you've got large blocks of areas in East Stewart where you can't get clean title. And so therefore, the individual property owner can't sell their property or refinance it. They can't get maximum value. They have to use alternative financing that carries a high interest rate. It carries, they won't pay you, you won't get 80% on the value. You'll get a much lower number. So what is happening in other communities, and it's a definite concern, is that a large developer goes in and buys enough property that they know they got clean title, and then they build multifamily in there. And the people that were there are gone. I remember the neighborhood meeting we had in East Stewart where one of the residents said, do you understand what rent really is here? Do you understand when we're talking affordable housing, do you understand what we're talking about? We're not talking $3,000 a month that was the development plan that was being proposed. We're talking $600 a month, And so I think there's real concern that if you're not careful, this, if implemented before title is cleaned in East Stewart, you're going to have a larger developer sweep in and build something and push everybody else out, particularly there on US 1 or on Dixie. But anyway.
Maybe just one last point of clarification.
Sure.
So I appreciate your response to the earlier question about the intent. But I guess, why now? Why the urgency now? Was there any message about why, like, it hasn't happened last week or last year or 4 years ago? So what is there? Are we scared of something coming soon, or what was the sense of timing?
So I think, and I'm just speaking, I've been with the city of Stewart for 2.5 years, and I've been in 2 zoning in progress in my 2.5 tenure here. I think one of the concerns is multifamily. We built too fast, too quick, and traffic, the concerns about traffic. So I think that was one of the concerns, is they didn't want to see these, like a bridge view coming through again, or a down south where, I forget the name of the development, but it's right by the Spring Tree. So I think those are some of the concerns, and so I think that, and then, so when they did the zoning in progress, they did state that they wanted to look at some of these guidelines, and those were those workshops that we held, and those were the requested changes that come out through the workshop. Traffic is always a question, but I live north of here. I know one of those that travel here. I go south because most people live north and they travel south. I am one of those people. So if you go past to Port St. Lucie Boulevard, or you go down Becker, and I've been in Port St. Lucie for 20-something years, and then I moved Fort Pierce West, you can see the sprawl coming. I mean, it's all their DRIs are coming to fruition that were quiet for 20-some-odd years. So traffic is always going to be an issue because City of Stewart is a bypass. We are one of those bypass cities that are always going to get the traffic, regardless if we have cars or we don't have cars, or if we have parking spaces or we don't have parking spaces. And it's going to continue to get worse until there's some type of relief. I don't think that it's all coming from the City of Stewart. I do believe that, like I said, if you go north, you'll see where the traffic's coming from. Mm-hmm. I see when I go out to Traditions. I love going out there, but I hate going out there. So, I think that's one of their concerns was The units that came on within the last 6 years, we moved really quick. They were approved with a lot of waivers. They're just, I think that they're concerned about the next wave coming through. So that's why they requested to do a zoning in progress and discuss what the future may hold for City of Stewart.
Thanks.
I know, when I saw the agenda and saw this, there's no way we can do justice to all of this, going through all of this stuff again. And then we still got, the nominated board member, we still got some stuff on ethics. And so we'd be here all night, and I apologize that we've taken a while, but we do take it seriously, and I think, and I think the commission wants input from, from various board members, so we're trying to do that. But, I guess the question I would have is that if these are more rigid than we would like, or not structured the way we would like, we can always come back with a recommendation later to the city and say, these are the tweaks that we think you make. I can understand their concern, and it's not just their concern, it's the concern of members within the city of Stewart that saw these high-rises go up and saw these apartments go up, and it's the young people and the older people, they don't want that, and they're afraid that it's gonna happen again. And so I think that's why the urgency, ask about the urgency, I think that's the urgency, is that they're afraid it's gonna happen again, because there are already projects out there that are approved, and I think Jody will give us an education on that at some point, and or Pinnell will give us an education on that at some point, and we'll find out what those, what's already out there, and you'll see that there's some stuff out there. But I will say again, any developer that comes into town right now and says they're gonna use 102 to put in 4 or 5 or 700 or 800 units, call their bluff, because they aren't gonna get financing for that. I guarantee you they're not gonna get financing for that with the rental market the way it is right now and the vacancy rates the way they are right now. So I do think we have some time, but I guess if we're being overly restrictive, at least there's the opportunity to back off of it, and it doesn't affect somebody's grandfathered rights. In other words, if we're giving somebody more rights instead of less, I think that's probably a good thing, because we can always turn around later and give those back. You know what I mean? So our concern is if we go too hard, that we get sued because we take property rights away from people. I think that's our biggest concern. But anyway, what do you suggest, Lee, in terms of going forward? I know we got other stuff on the agenda.
The other stuff is, we have, you got to nominate the 2 members that'll be on the CRA, and then the city clerk and I have a presentation just to talk about public records. So and those aren't, both of those, nomination should take 2 minutes.
Yeah, right.
Unless you guys have a debate who wants to be it, but it didn't seem that way for the chair and vice chair. So I think we got time.
Now that we've had this discussion, maybe we're changing our mind.
It's 10 till 6, so if you want to take a break, that's fine. But I wanted to address a couple of things just so
Okay.
the board's clear. So when you look up there on these charts, you'll see check mark removed and an A put there. So it's clear to some of you newbies. That's the check mark means you'll hear permitted, and check mark means permitted. It's permitted as a right. That means they don't have to have a public hearing to do that particular development. As long as they meet certain requirements, it can be approved by a development director. When they put allowable there, it's still allowed. They just got to come for the advisory board and the city commission to do what they want to do. And I can't speak for the commission, but they were just trying to put an extra step of protection for East Stewart. Obviously, we're concerned. And I wanted to address, some of you newbies weren't here, but we talk about the clear title problem. What we found in East Stewart is you have grandma and grandpa passed away, and these are older homes, and there could be 2 grandkids out of 10 grandkids living in the house and paying the electric bill, but no one ever transferred the title to anybody. And you have multiple generations that have done that, and so there's no clean title, and so we have a program in place through the CRA, and the CRB went through it as well, where we have identified, we had identified maybe like 30 or 40 properties in the East Stewart that what I just explained could be a problem. And so we have developed a program where we pay attorney's fees for a probate/real estate lawyer, and we pay, the CRA funds will pay the attorney for these families to clear up the title. So, and so there's, again, it was like 30 or some odd properties that we identified, and I think some of them we've done some so far, none, but no one's done it. So we're offering it, and I think we're offering up to like $3 or $5 grand for the fees. And I remember speaking to an attorney that said that she could do it for that. So, and then they would go and try and clear the title. And so I guess I'm surprised no one's taken advantage of that, but we do have that. And so I wanted, for the newbies, you weren't here obviously, but when we're having that discussion about the issue, that's the issue and we have a solution. I guess nobody's taken advantage of the solution
Right.
yet.
Okay, Jody, how much time do you think you need? You need another 2-3 hours, or are you good? No.
So, I mean, as far as other, like in chapter 6 is all your shared parking requirements. Again, that's in your large developments and things like that. So we did strike the language because that is what the board had requested, at no shared parking. So, I mean, I can go through chapter 6 if you like. It's just really some cleanup language based off chapter 2 and chapter 3. This is the most substantial in your East Stewart district, in your CRA, where some of these changes were permitted by right. Now you have some type of approval process through the city commission, and other than your shared parking. I can move forward if you'd like, but like
Yeah,
in
let's-
chapter 8 is just changing your non-conforming lot to non-conforming parcel. So it's just some cleanup language there.
Well, maybe we should see 6 then. That's the one you think we should take a look at then? for the
If you'd
shared
like to
park-
look at 6.
You think so? We should
sure.
look at 6 then? Okay. Should we order in pizza?
So 6 is anything other than, that's not a urban district or an overlay district. All your other requirements for commercial will fall under chapter 6. Your design guidelines, what type of elements you should decorate the buildings, your parking standards, your key islands, all that. This is where this lives in chapter 6. So
Now,
some
did
of-
you say, Jody, this does not cover any of the urban
No,
overlays?
this does not cover any of the urban.
So for us, it really is, for CRB, it's not relevant, really?
It would not be irrelevant to the CRB,
Okay. Well,
but
let's
if
skip
you
it then.
want to walk through it, we can.
I don't think so. Our issues are different, I think.
And then the only thing is in our definitions, we did add a definition for parcel record. So you can go and define what that is.
Okay.
But like I said, most of the things that substantial changes happened in chapter 2 and some changes in chapter 3, and that falls over to chapter 6. Your chapter 8 is your variances and your non-conforming lots. We just cleaned up the language there as well. So as you know, we will not have a variance board anymore. All variants will now be heard by your local planning agency, but the same rules as like your hardships and everything will still follow under chapter 8. So if you don't have any other questions, unless you want to move forward, I'm here till 8 o'clock tomorrow morning.
I do have questions, yeah,
Go ahead.
whenever we're ready.
Go ahead. Question.
It was a really good presentation, Jody, thanks for that. And, listening to all that, I was sketching out a few notes as we went along, and then somehow Bonnie basically said half of what I had written down. So, but I do want to bring up a couple more. I have several thoughts about this. This is very complex and many detailed pieces, such as changes in setbacks. Is it 7? Is it 5? Okay, now the minimum is 10. Okay, that's pretty specific, and the impacts of that, I'm probably not best positioned to comment on that. Impervious surface going from 65 to 50%. Ooh, what's the impact of that? I'm probably not the best positioned to comment on that. And I started making a long list of these things, the accessory dwelling units, the duplexes, I reiterate what Bonnie said. It seems like if we were going to do something like this, we should get like some really smart people on these topics, urban planning, developers, people who understand the subject. And maybe the commission did this previously. Maybe they were involved in some of the meetings. But this is quite a complex effort that is intended here. So I guess I would just caution my recommendation would be to caution the commission if this is really going to serve the citizens and with the intent that exists. And a lot of this, my concern is, I think the biggest concern that everybody talks about, that I hear about, is affordable housing, or just housing. And I'm not sure this is going to help at all. Maybe that would be a question back to the commission, is how is this addressing the shortage of housing in the city, including the CRA district? I realize the CRA is part of the city. Maybe that was part of the effort of this review. If it was, it's not obvious to me how it's going to address. But maybe I'll just stop there. And I don't know what our role is here in terms of a recommendation or a comment back to the commission. But I think it would be worth it to have. Does the whole thing need to start over again? That might be one way to do it. If I would just think that there's a lot of smart people who have done this several times, whose input all of us would probably benefit from, beyond the staff. Nothing against the staff. I'm sure the staff has done a very good job, but there's a lot of specialties in here, and being able to anticipate the impacts of suggested changes, I think, would be quite helpful, because they might end up with the wrong result if we're not careful. I guess that's all my comments.
Okay.
Just a general input, not a specific recommendation or anything, is we're talking in kind of an isolation. Okay, we're looking here in Stewart. Okay, how many affordable housing and all that? Go drive up northern St. Lucie. Drive down to Bridge Road. There's thousands and thousands and thousands of units that have been built, pre-approved and built, and there's other units that are breaking ground. There's no shortage of housing. They're all $2,500, $3,000 a month. That's the problem. But to create more density here, with the idea that we're creating some kind of solution to housing, there's tremendous amount of units out there now and about to be built. We don't have to address that. We have to address affordability maybe, but I think we're looking at a little microcosm of Stewart. But all of these people, they're coming to Stewart. They're working here. They're driving through here at 100 miles an hour on US 1. So I mean, we already have a tremendous amount of density that we're not really talking about or thinking about. And that's
I would like to find out if the city is willing to go into public-private assistance with the people that own the properties to help them to develop, because that cost is an issue. So since they have to jump through these hoops and go through the commission for an action to do work on their properties, is the city willing to help them?
And Frederick, that one of the things that's happened to East Stewart over the last 20 years is this issue, we talked about without having clear title. If you don't have clear title, think about it. In the last 20 years, we've had 2 major increases in housing values, right? Did East Stewart participate in that? No, right? Because they can't borrow money to fix their house up and make it worth more, and they can't sell it and get fair price because they can't give a clear title. And so over a period of time, East Stewart has suffered from that problem, when the rest of us have made a ton of money. Yeah. And so I think it's a point that there has to be something there. But if we fix that title thing, I think ultimately people will be able to borrow money against their house. They'll be able to fix it up and do whatever they want to do and keep it. But anyway. Sorry, I didn't mean to.
No, that's good, because I'll go back and I'll get the word. Maybe they don't understand or didn't clearly understand that the city is actually trying to help them and not to take away from their properties. So I'm in a position to explain that process a little bit better to some of the owners.
Just so you know, that we'll have one or two lawyers that'll be on a provider list kind of, and the property owner can contact a lawyer and discuss it with the lawyer before even doing anything.
Perfect.
And we would just pay the fees. So, when I say we, the CRA.
I thought you were gonna write a check.
Nice guy.
Okay, I think from my perspective, and I don't know how the rest of the board feels, I commend the commissioners for addressing a problem that we have, and that is that what the previous commission basically approved, although they thought it was going to produce a decent result, it produced the exact opposite result. And so as a result of that, you know, we ended up with all this stuff coming out of the ground, and the thought was that if you build it and there's an oversupply of it, it will bring prices down, right? And that is basic economics, so normally you would think that makes sense. But it does not make sense in this market because, right, because with commercial property, which this is commercial investment property we're talking about with these apartments, they make their money not on selling those and not on selling one or two or something like that to finance it on a free and clear. They make money on that by going to Wall Street and refinancing that property. They didn't sell that property on US 1. They just refinanced it with different investors, and the previous investors got their cash out, and the next investors didn't. Well, the value of a project, a commercial project like housing, like apartments, that value is based not on, oh, this is a great building, this is what I'm. It's not based on comps. It's based on the income that could produce, right?
Yes.
And so if you think about it, you know, you've got these units out there. There's buildings that are up and they're built, but just like you said, Jeff, they're empty right now. And why is that? Well, they're not going to discount it. They would rather it be empty and go into disrepair and foreclosure, because if they discount that price, let's say it's $2,000 and they drop it down to $1,500 to fill out 3 units, that's going to be the value of everything in there. From that point forward, $1,500 is going to be the fair market value of a unit in that housing, and that's going to decrease the value of that property by tens of millions of dollars. And so they're not going to do it. Whereas, I'll give you another of what I think we've been successful with, and this is what I would encourage the commission to look at, is that when you look around at people that are able to live here, right, most of the time it's because somebody they knew already owned someplace, right? And now think about it. If I buy a house, and I've owned a house for, say I own a house for 15 years, right? And I own that house, and now I give it to I have my son live in it, or I rent it out to somebody locally, right? I don't have to get full value on that, because I'm not going to refinance that property and pull the equity out. I'm just going to continue to rent it out. And so I'm getting the appreciation, the value of the appreciation every single year, but I'm not having to sell the house to do that, and I don't have to pay tax on it. So I'm going to get a 6 or 7 or 8% return due to appreciation, and a 5 or 6 or 7% return due to actual rent, and that keeps prices down. And so I use as an example, as a local family that has the unit I'm renting right now. It's a 3-bedroom duplex near Flamingo. It's not. It's on Finney, but I got that unit for $1,850. 3-bedroom. Now, how could you do that? You couldn't do that if that was a Wall Street investor. There is no way in heck that would happen, right? There's no way it would happen. But it's a person that's lived in this community for 40 years, has real estate in the community, has invested in the community. Those are the kind of things. I mean, I still think that the commission needs to look not just at this issue, but they need to look at ways that we can encourage ownership, because that's what's causing the problem. And I'm not talking about necessarily ownership of people who are young and just starting to work, because they're not going to buy houses because they don't know where they're living yet. But I'm talking about ownership where somebody can own a unit and lease it out and keep it for a long term. And I think we need to look at some of that. And but I commend the city for stepping in so that we don't get a bigger problem But I think that my recommendation would be that we indicate to the commission that we approve but we think there's some changes that need to be made, there's some tweaks that need to be made, and it may not make sense to hold off everything to talk about those tweaks, but that we go back, and I think it's kind of like what Bonnie said, to some degree, we looked at the problem and we tried to solve the problem and then go this way instead of solving the base and going up so that we could cut it off at the roots. And I think if we could, I think we need to get back to the comp plan. I think we need to get back to the CRA plan. I think we need to get back to what is the future for the city. We had Dwayne in here. I'm not sure everybody agrees with it. They didn't agree with him at the time. But I'm not so sure that we shouldn't do that process again. So that's kind of what I think.
I would agree. My recommendation would be to go back to a community-led citywide master planning process that would guide changes to code instead of changing the code and then seeing what's going to happen with how our city develops.
All right. Do we have, what do we need from this? This is just, do we need a motion or just need our opinion or what? Is Bonnie's motion count? Can we just use that? or-
If you want to make a motion and it's seconded, then you guys can vote on it.
You want to make that as a motion?
Yeah, I mean, I'd love for 50 other things to be in it, but yes, that would be my motion, that the city halt any changes to codes until they can perform a citywide master planning update that is community-led.
Second.
Okay, discussion. I would just say that I think that they need to continue and finish what they've got right now and get the ZIP completed so that at least we've got a base program in place. Because there is still the threat out there that some of this other stuff can happen. But I do think that if we're going to plan, we need to go back and look at where we're at. And I think it's, we need to see what kind of community we want to be.
Could I just ask, maybe Jody, if I understood right, it's a good point, Mark. So I don't know I have no visibility of what projects may already be in the pipeline or coming. It was my understanding there's not a lot or little, maybe I'm wrong, the information I had, but if it's built out, then there can't be a whole lot coming, right? Or help me understand that.
So when you have a built-out community like the city of Stewart, you're typically going to start getting redevelopment infills. So that's what we're starting to see now. Some expansion to the larger facilities like Walmart. They have a small expansion. But you're going to start seeing the infills and the redevelopment. And that's where, the density has already been allocated for that property. So it's a like for like sometimes. So that's what we're starting to see.
So let me clarify the question. So and I don't know the description of what exactly is what the majority do not want, but whatever that is, redevelopment, say maybe it takes a zoning change or a density change. Those kinds of things, I assume they're probably in one of those tables where they have to come in front of the commission for such changes, as opposed to just by right.
Correct. So a lot of things in the city of Stewart are not, they'll say by right, but a lot of times we can't park it. You have design criteria that you can't fit on a smaller site. So a lot of the projects do end up in front of the city commission. So, and that seems to be consistent with the last 30 years, how the city of Stewart has developed.
Right, so I'll stop talking in a second, but I guess to me that influences the urgency. So if these big things that we're concerned about are going to come in front of the commission anyway, then to me, coming back to this review of the code, maybe it's not so urgent. I mean, it's well-intentioned, and there's probably a lot of changes that make sense, but if we were to urge the commission to reconsider, it's not going to impact whether they have a view of future, let's call them big projects, I guess, for lack of a better word. See what I mean?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, and I think, and the city, or the commission has done a pretty good job. They took out the really bad stuff, those half units that they added there that, you know, a unit isn't a unit. If it's a certain square feet, it's a half unit or it's a unit, you know, they took some of that stuff off that literally was passed in the middle of the night during COVID. So I think that I give them a lot of credit for getting some of that junk out of there. But I think that at this point, I think they've hit the major stuff, and now there's an opportunity to go back and get more community involvement, get more planning, and then say, what do we want to be? People don't realize, during the Dewani plan, the city actually rejected the plan that he proposed. It's not the same plan that he proposed. So everybody thinks it was, but it's not. So we're not, you know, I think it's that kind of thing where we are. Because right now, if we start making more changes like this, we're potentially going to make land use changes, which could hurt us down the road. And we're also going to potentially create a situation where we're going to be moving away from the comp plan and away from what the city wants. And I don't think that's what we want to do either. We have to have a base to work from. The comp plan's the base. So I think that's where we're at.
I mean, could we, instead of just slamming the brakes on everything and going back to the starting point, could we compartmentalize some of the major things that are underway and analyze each one individually? Maybe give them the time they deserve, as opposed to just
Well, I
putting the
think
brakes on everything?
I think that's what we've done.
It is.
But the problem here, and Lee can probably, you know, give us some guidance on that, but the problem that we've got right now is the longer the zip takes place, the more chance we're gonna get sued I mean, there are people out there that are wanting to do projects, whether it's tenant improvements and having tenants move in, or, you know, or it's building something or whatever, and they're stuck right now. And so the longer that takes, the more likely there is that there's a lawsuit claiming that we took their property without compensation. So I think that we just need to finish this up, and I think that's what we're all saying. Let's just finish this up, get it in place, and then let's start the other process, which might take 2 years.
Right.
But let's start that process and see, and get buy-in, and let's see what the people want to do.
Right.
If I may,
Sure.
Chair, so you had asked a question whether we could compartmentalize it. When the chair asked for a motion, Vice Chair Moser made a motion, and it was seconded, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
Seconded.
so that, and her motion was that we recommend that the commission go back to community-based lead and city work on a citywide master plan that is community-led. I'm going in my notes here. So that was her motion, which was seconded. Unless she amends her motion to add in to compartmentalize, you guys will have to vote on that motion first.
Okay.
If it passes by majority, then that's the recommendation to the board. If it doesn't, then you have another motion where you say, I want to compartmentalize it. But when the chair asks for a motion, and it's first to make the motion, you know, gets to address the issue, what they want to be done. So I'm not
My
just saying
mistake.
you need to be quick on your feet.
Oh, my mistake.
Gary, you'll-
Yeah.
Can we talk about amendments
Yeah,
and discuss it?
Vice Chair, you can do an amendment, and then it would have to be seconded, and then you go that route, but.
Okay, I'm gonna think out loud here.
Just ask Lee to tell you what to say. He knows what to do.
My amendment would be that the commission can move forward with the exception of changes to duplexes, any changes about duplexes, ADUs, and shared parking. I don't know, thinking out loud, so any comments?
I'd say the commission will buy that, so, but go ahead.
Did you say will or will not?
Will not. That parking is an issue. Shared parking is an issue. And they want to shut that off pretty quick, because that helps stop. A lot of these projects that were approved under shared parking, reduced parking, on-street parking, and things like that. And they're significantly under the required parking. So I think rightfully so, they want to stop that. I mean, all of this stuff can be revisited if we,
Yeah.
you know, later. Nothing goes away, and anything we do probably down the road is going to loosen the requirements rather than increase it. So all it's going to do is create value for people instead of taking it away.
Yeah, I think my concern with these changes to the duplexes and ADUs is it's basically just going to eliminate their existence or make it incredibly difficult. And right now, those duplexes where you're living are some of the only places in the city of Stuart that are under $300,000 for someone to purchase. So I don't think we want to make that harder for people who are struggling with affordability.
Well, yeah, I think, but, like I said, we've also got we've got all that stuff down East Ocean that's, that's affordable. Cedar Point and Vista Pines, whatever's down there, and Kingswood, and all those are all providing most of, people don't realize it, most of the affordable housing is for elderly in the city of Stuart. It's not young people in jobs, it's the elderly. And that's where we're losing a lot of potential, of potential housing. But anyway, sorry, Bonnie.
No, it's fine. Anything else I can,
So
anything
Vice
else to
Chair-
talk about?
Vice Chair amended her motion.
Yeah, let me just clarify for the record, because I know you were piecemealing it together. So, and I'm going to try, I took notes, Vice Chair Moser. So it's your motion to move forward with the commission, all of the commission's proposed amendments, except for the amendments pertaining to duplexes, accessory dwelling units, and shared parking. You wish that those would go back to a citywide master plan that is community-led.
Second.
Is that right? Let's make sure that's her.
I would like for all of it to go to a citywide master plan.
Yeah.
But I think other than the amendment, those can continue for now until that master plan process is complete, knowing that will take years,
Yeah.
if it's done well.
What I would suggest is that we encourage the commission to finish what they've got, go forward with what they've got at this point, but then finish that zip up, and then let's start a community-based program, and the commission's gonna lead that too, but, so they're gonna help pick the planner and do whatever, so we just decide, at that point then, we get everything where stuff can keep on going, we've stopped all the major stuff from happening, they're gonna finish that up, and then the rest of it, we'll re-review
Yeah.
through the community planning process.
Put our thumb in the dike,
Yeah.
more or less.
Yeah.
So,
Could I offer another thought about
Sure.
the motion? So, we're not really approving or disapproving of this. We're just making a recommendation, right? So,
Right.
and giving feedback to the commission, which of course they're asking for it. So I think the motion as it stands is the right feedback. I think the commission can take it into consideration, and they're going to do what they feel is the right thing, but at least they heard the concerns from this group with some of those specifics. I think there's probably far more if we had some other people in the room look at it, but anyway, it's a good start.
Well, and that's my problem, is there probably are a lot more. And I don't want to, I don't want to tie this thing up because, of just some specific things. In other words, I don't want to, I think Bonnie's thought process is a good one. And but I don't think we need to pick specific stuff out right now. Let's just leave it alone, get it done, tell them, move forward with it, get it done. And then, after that's finished, after we're done with the zip, they can finish out what they got. We're only probably a couple months away from finishing that. And then, in the meantime, we can be organizing, they can be organizing and help organize a community-based planning session, a program. Let's try to see where we're at.
Yeah,
is your motion standing on what you just amended it to? Because it has not been seconded, but
Sure.
we just need to clarify if you
I
want
thought
to
I
amend it.
seconded it.
I would say he seconded.
Yeah.
Seconded at the
I'll
first
second.
time,
I'm going to leave it as it is. We can vote against it, but I want to send the message to the commission that there are some things in here that are cause for alarm and shouldn't continue.
All right.
All right. Any other comments? Okay, any other, nobody? I will just say that I like what you're trying to do, Bonnie. I won't be able to support this particular motion because there are other things in there that I have a problem with, and I don't want everybody to get off track. but that's my only thought. That's the only reason. Conceptually, I'm 100%.
Completely understand.
So, all right.
Vice Chair Moser, just for the record, could we clarify you wanted the amended motion or your original motion? Because I have both, so I want to make sure we have it right for the record.
It was her amended motion.
Oh,
I
now
think,
I'm
right?
getting confused. The amended motion would still be
The commission can move forward with the exception of duplexes, ADUs, and shared parking.
with the request that they,
Community-based review.
yes, that they begin the
Citywide
process of a
master
citywide master plan that is community-led.
Very well. And Board Member Scherer, you seconded that amended motion. Thank you.
Correct.
Thank you.
All right. Any other comment? Comment from the public?
I have none, Chair.
Okay.
Roll call?
Okay. All right. Well, I think on this, should we do roll call? Yeah. Okay. Let's do a roll call.
Board Member Monero?
Here?
Yes or no, sorry.
Yes.
Board Member Scherer?
Yes.
Board Member James?
No.
Board Member Whalen?
Yes.
Chair Breckbill?
No.
Oh, this was for the, I'm sorry, I thought you were just taking a exiting. I'm no. I'm a no.
He changed his vote?
Okay. Chair Breckbill said no, and Vice Chair Moser?
Yes. So we need a new one, right?
All right. What was the final on that?
So it's 3-3.
Ah, great. Who's going to decide that? Well, it goes to show we were kind of undecided, right? So I think you got a flair for where we're at. So do we need anything more? We don't need anything more on that, do we? Okay.
Open a pizza.
Yeah, I know. Let's have pizza. Somebody get the Lunas. I'm hungry. All right. I guess we got to nominate board members for the Community Redevelopment Agency. Is that,
I'll read it for the record, the resolution number.
okay, go ahead.
So it's resolution number 01-2025 CRB, a resolution of the Community Redevelopment Board of the City of Stuart, Florida, to nominate 2 members to serve on the Community Redevelopment Agency for the remaining current term from present to December 31st, 2025, providing an effective date and for other purposes.
Okay, so basically, what this is 2 members that attend and are a part of the CRA. Now, because that organization is an organization that can set, determine spending and do things like that, there are some additional requirements. The financial reporting is at a little higher level as to what you have to report. And I think, Mary, what else is the ethics stuff everybody still has to do that, right?
Everyone has to do it on this board, and that's in my next presentation, and the CRA.
Okay.
They're both responsible for that.
All right, so basically, that's all it is. You've got another meeting per month, and you've got some disclosures you got to do. They're similar to the disclosures you're doing if you're running for office, is what it is. But otherwise, that's all it is. I served on that last year with Tom Campenny, and I will tell you, it's a good opportunity for us to get represented from the CRB on the CRA, and hopefully that's what we're looking at. So I know, Bonnie, you said as vice chair usually that that'd be one of the things, but you say I understand that from a commitment
I've got
standpoint.
some time constraints that just doesn't make sense for me right now.
Yeah, I understand. So, and we need 2. I guess we can do it one at a time. Do we have a motion for somebody to serve? Does anybody want to serve? Who else wants to serve?
I'm just going to ask you, Mark, is that something you're willing to do another year?
Well, yeah, they'll probably throw me off, but I would probably I would do it. I enjoy participating in that. Is there anybody else that's interested?
Clay, would you be interested?
Excuse me. Yeah, potentially. I guess I need to learn a little bit more about the time commitment and any other requirements. It's something I'd like to do, but I'm not sure it would be fair of me to commit at this moment.
If you'd like me to review just real quickly, the CRA meetings meet on the fourth Monday of every month. They're typically at 4 p.m. There are the quarterly meetings, which you all participated in January. That happens in place of the regular CRA meeting, so that's joint with the CRA, CRB, and City Commission. But otherwise, it's once a month.
Yeah, it's not too bad. There, a lot of the things that are discussed, you'll have already had an opportunity to see them at the CRB level a lot of times. Sometimes it's the other way around. We're seeing them there, and then they're coming into CRB, you know, like this issue was. But it's pretty, that part of it is, you know, you don't have a lot of additional educational type things, you know, as if you were sitting on another one.
And just to clarify, you will sit on a board with all 5 city commissioners, and there'll be 2 from this board,
Yeah,
and you'll be a voting member of that board.
yeah. So, anybody, any else? Clay?
Well, if you won't find anybody, Clay, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say it's very appealing, but the time commitments beyond this board would be probably a stretch for me. So I think it's better that someone else has a shot that can commit the time.
That's good.
I'll volunteer.
Okay. So we got, I guess we can do them together. We got 2 people. Do we have a second for those 2?
Someone needs to make a
We
motion.
nominate.
Okay, I thought somebody did, but maybe not.
Just some discussion.
Okay. Yeah, we just had discussion. Okay, we need a.
So I move that Mark and Frederick represent the CRB on the CRA.
Second.
Second. Who's that?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
You're out of the house.
I can't do that, can I? Okay. All right, thank you. I appreciate it. Frederick, thanks, appreciate it. I know you'll get the support from the rest of the board too, and they'll, if they've got an issue that they want you to bring up, I'm sure they will, because I think we've always worked pretty well together
Yes.
as a group.
I turn?
Yep, your turn. Now you can tell
Okay.
us ethically what we can and can't do.
I will try and make it brief, and not to scare the new members. Congratulations, by the way, on your appointments and reappointments. And but these meetings are definitely not normally this long, so don't be nervous.
Yeah, they are.
Telling you.
Okay, Lee Baggett and I, my name is Mary Kendall, I'm the city clerk, and we're just going to present real quickly a few things on public records law and the sunshine law, so you're aware. I also wanted to let you know we did provide you a packet at your place. We did things a little backwards this time, and that's why I think there was some overwhelming feelings of like, there's so much to this board, and, you know, I'm not really sure I'm getting all this information in this packet, but you were sworn in at the joint meeting, which is typically not the way it's done. It's just that meeting happened to come before this meeting, and we didn't have a regular January CRB that we started. So, but I'm going to talk to you guys about public records, and I don't like to typically read from a presentation slide or whatever, but this is just very basic, simple information that's kind of nice to get it just as it is. But the public records law applies to elected and appointed board members. It does apply to this board. Board members are responsible for the preservation and transfer of public records in their possession to the city, and that's in the event that you're ever asked for it. If a public records request comes in, you just simply, we'll let you know, and you provide any public records that you have. I'll go into some other details on that. But also identify which records should be saved and what may be deleted or destroyed. We're going to talk about that. And the responsibilities of the board when a public records request is received. What is a public record? A public record is any record made in connection in transaction of any official business that comes before you on this board. It includes, and this is just the specific definition that is per statute, includes paper, letters, maps, books, tapes, photographs, videos, recordings, voicemails, text messages, emails, and social media posts. A lot of times people forget about social media posts, but they're just as important if you're talking about board business. And just remember that it's the content of the record that matters, it's not where it's kept. So if you have content on your personal cell phone, though it is your personal cell phone, it's city-related business or board-related business, then it is still a public record. Is the public record law applicable to elected and appointed board members? Yes. Just like we mentioned, I'm not going to go through all of that, but we mentioned the applicable boards is the City Commission, the CRA, CRB, LPA, and the East Stewart Historical Advisory Committee. You are legally responsible for the preservation of those records and to transfer those to the city when asked. This is a legal obligation, and it extends to records that exist, like I said, on personal devices. You have something on a personal computer, that is still public record if it applies. Upon your resignation from the board or your separation, your term ends, we ask that if you have any public records that are related to the CRB or the city, you just forward those to the city clerk's office, and we'll hold on to those for you. Upon appointment, this is basically what your orientation is and everything with the information on a city email. I don't know if all of you have received the city email yet. Have you received correspondence? Yes? Okay. Basically, that city email is connected to your personal email, and it's set up that way because a lot of times people don't remember to go in. You have a new city email address, and we'd be emailing agendas and correspondence, and nobody would get it because we're not used to checking something like that. So we set it up in a way where it just forwards to your personal email address. So that way, that is still city business, and anything that goes through your City of Stewart assigned email address is something that we have access to. So if ever we get a public records request and it's just for email correspondence, we have the ability to search that, and we don't need to bother you with it. If it then includes text messages, or sometimes we have the ever-popular all correspondence, so that means we have to reach out to you as a board member for any text messages, any personal emails, any social media posts, things like that. So otherwise, if it's on the city email address, we ask that you keep all your city correspondence on your city email address because of public record. And if you receive something personal, we recommend forwarding it to your city email address as well. That way, the record is there. This just talks.
You mean,
oh,
just to clarify, you mean if we receive something that is pertinent to this role in our personal email account, that we should forward that to the.
Correct.
Yeah, got it.
Yes. Let's see. And I know Mark mentioned the annual financial disclosure form. That is something that we'll be reaching out to you about. The State of Florida Commission on Ethics annually requires certain boards, all the board members of certain boards, to complete an annual financial disclosure. It's really not that difficult. Everything is electronic. It's online now, but we'll communicate with you. I did leave a financial disclosure information log in your folder, but it's a pretty simple process, and we'll definitely be with you guys every step of the way. And then basically, this is just some information. The first one doesn't really apply to you. That is for commissioners and CRA board members. Well, it does apply to the 2 new CRA board members, so we'll be talking about that. But basically, our requirement is to provide you this public records training. You have your orientation packet, and in that packet, the blue and the green, that information is in there. We just try and give you some helpful tools, a map of the city, I think was in there. Suse, did we include? Yeah. And so anything in there is more informational. That thicker packet, the Florida Commission on Ethics Guide to Sunshine Amendment, that is a very good document, and it's very helpful, a helpful resource. So if you take a look at that, that would help you. Let's see. So this is what we talked about basically with the city email. We give a recommendation, what's in the box down there, that if you do receive an email or a text or something, if you can set it up with an automatic response that basically tells them that this is city business, please email me at this email address. That's just a suggested statement. And then submittal of public records to the city. There are some places that require you to turn over your public records, and once that's done, you can delete them. The City of Stewart doesn't feel that way. We don't agree with that, because ultimately, the board member is responsible for your own public records. When, if and when we have a public records request, that's when we'll ask you for those specific records. And then it's your responsibility to hold on to those records even, again, until your term is up, because if I get another public records request 6 months later and it includes some of that same information, you're going to be asked to produce that again. So we don't hold on to everything for your records. And let's see, are there records that are related to city business that are not considered public record? Yes, not too many though, to be honest. I always look at it, it's a good rule of thumb, you know, if you're not sure, keep it. But notes, things that you use as just reminders or rough drafts. Do you have any other examples of things that might? It's pretty.
We get this a lot. Mainly the commissioners are on the radar. Commissioners get a lot of public records requests, and some of the staff get public records requests. But commissioners could be up there writing notes down or reading from notes when they have public comments. And then people will send a public records request. What was he looking at or she looking at? You know?
And that is public record.
So, so these, if it's just notes jotting down to remind you later of what was said, or to remind yourself of something that might not fall under a public record. So that's what she's explaining there. But that does happen. I want to caution you, because even though you are an advisory board, you may get a hot topic come before you, and then you're going to get a bunch of public records requests. So we want you to stay on your toes with the law, especially, because you can get in trouble on this. So I'll let you continue.
Yeah, and it doesn't happen very often, so don't be nervous. I mean, it's more rare that advisory board members are receiving public records requests, but like Lee said, sometimes if there's a really hot topic that's coming before you, a lot of people will, you know, request your correspondence just to make sure people aren't communicating where they shouldn't be. And as everybody, I didn't really touch base a whole lot on the Sunshine Law. That information is also in that packet that you have. But the Sunshine Law basically is about transparency. We want, if you're required, and this board is required to follow the Sunshine Law, you're not to communicate with each other on any topic that may come before you for a vote. So once you leave this meeting, if you guys are standing in the parking lot and you're chit-chatting about the weather or anything like that, that's all great, but you also have to consider that sometimes it's a perception. If somebody else sees you guys talking, or somebody goes out to lunch, you very well could be talking about something that's going to come before the board. So you just have to be careful with things like that.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
In terms of like public record for us, it just pertains to CRB items.
Correct.
Not
You
like,
can-
not it, like Commissioner Reed was here, I've probably sent him 20 emails about non-CRB things. I don't have to worry about keeping those.
No, if you've sent emails, that information is within our records, and we can go back and search that.
Yeah,
So you
but
don't have to
just an
worry about that.
example, but I just want to clarify, like, it just pertains to our agenda items, correct?
Or any issue that might come up.
Or that might, okay, that
Right,
was
so
the
it's
question
like-
that I had
Zoning
is,
in progress.
you know, let's say I've sent a dozen emails about the Bright Line, that hasn't come up for us, but it might in the future, so I should,
I would hold on to those just in
Refrain.
case.
okay,
And if they're emails, you should. I mean,
Okay.
it's easy to.
yeah.
And you can communicate with a commissioner, especially a lot of times you guys have a commissioner liaison who appointed you, and that's the whole point. You can communicate with that person on how they feel about issues that are coming before you on this board. But communicating amongst each other, or even with another commissioner, I think,
Yeah.
about items that are going to come before this board, you just have to be, well, I mean, I don't know, that's a great.
I think
area.
you're all right. It's just each other. It's just people on your board. Now, there are two of you that are on the board with the commission on the CRA every year. So
And then that's
those,
another board.
those folks, so it'd be Board Member James and Chair Brackbill, you would need to be cautious about talking with a commissioner about something that's coming up for the CRA. So, it's an extra, you're on the board with them, but the rest of you, you can talk to your commissioners regularly if you need to, especially before each meeting. That's pretty common. You just don't want to talk to each other about issues that are coming up amongst, you don't want to discuss amongst each other, even two of you, you know? And you don't want to email, and I'm going to talk in a minute about social media. I mean, that's a trap for public record. And I'll go over that in a minute.
Okay. Public records request. So basically, if anyone asks you directly for a public records request, you can recommend that they communicate to us and just refer them to the clerk's department. If they want to, if they persist and they want to give you the request, because they do have the right to do that, just take the information down and then contact us, and we'll take care of it and make it an official request. But requesters are not required to give their name. They're not required to tell you why they want the record. So you just got to be careful. Sometimes if we ask those questions, we could be subject to a lawsuit.
Really?
So, but basically, if a records request is received for your information, we'll take care of it. We'll reach out and contact you. We would just expect you to search your files. We would let you know specifically what it is. So you would search through your things and email us either the records or email us that you don't have anything. And so basically, this is just what we already talked about. If you were to leave this position, we just ask that you go through all of your devices and turn in any records that you have to us. By statute, it does say within 10 days of exiting office. And then there's some criminal consequences if you fail to turn over any records that you have. But Lee, if you wanted to talk about a little more of this.
Yeah, she's got them up there on the slide. You do have, you're on this board, you volunteered, you're not getting paid, but you got exposure. So, and you've heard the sunshine and public records. It's transparent. The reason why they call it sunshine, you want to be in the sunshine, everything you do. They don't want you guys wheeling and dealing, in the parking lot about, to collaborate how you're going to vote on something. They want you to have your discussions in the public so everybody can see it, and when they have public comments, can address it. But there are some exposures for the public records and the sunshine. She has them listed up there. Primarily, the biggest is someone, we get a lot of public records, and we've got a lot of creative lawyers out there that are looking for us not to disclose something, and then they'll sue us and try and get attorney's fees. They're not suing for damages, they're just suing, hey, you gotta turn over these documents, and we want $400 an hour for every hour spent getting this court order, and so sometimes those attorney's fees can rack up to a large amount. They would more than likely be going after the city, but they could potentially go after you as well.
Wow.
Most of you are probably a lot more difficult to get money out of. And I'm not saying because you don't have it, just because it's more difficult, especially if you're married and, you have homesteaded property and all, but the city will get sued and have to pay attorney's fees. But you do have to worry about, there can be a criminal misdemeanor or a fine up to $1,000 or both, that's one. And that's probably more with the sunshine than public records. Public records are probably gonna be more of the civil lawsuit seeking attorney's fees. The other one is a non-criminal infraction, pay up to $500. This has happened locally. You can Google some. I know some local cities on the Treasure Coast. Some of their board members, primarily the commission, or in some of them, they call them the council members, they have been at least sued or had criminal charges or these non-criminal infractions for violations of public records and sunshine. So it even has happened close to home. You could also be removed from the board. You've heard the Ethics Commission, and so sometimes someone can just file a complaint against you on an ethics violation. It's not criminal, but you could have a public censure that you violated the ethics. And they could make a recommendation to state attorney, if it's a crime, to have you criminally charged or at least removed from the board. I wanted to kind of just go over a couple things that I mentioned earlier about social media. And I found a case, and this is Escambia County Board of Commissioners here in Florida. And the case is Bear, just like the animal, Bear versus Escambia County Board of Commissioners. And it's a case that was being litigated for a few years. And it went up to the judge, and the judge made couple opinions. And I just want to say this in abundance of caution, because social media is it's a pitfall and a nightmare for us city attorneys. Because, a lot of you are publicly, you're active. That's why you're here and volunteering. So you might be on social media giving your opinion. And I would love to give my opinion. I'm subject to the same rules you guys are, but I just don't because of public record. So when even if two of you are having a conversation on Facebook or posting about the same issue that's coming before you, that could be a sunshine violation. So you want to be careful, or you might cross the line and not know it. Another thing is how are you going to keep track of all your posts? When someone asks you a public records request for all your posts on this issue, and so this commissioner in Escambia County, he got sued in federal court, and the one issue was he was posting on his own personal social Facebook page, and it was closed. So this guy sued him so that he would open up his personal Facebook page so that everybody could comment on his stuff, and so since he talked about some of his potential dealings as a commissioner, the judge said, yeah, you would open up your private social media. I mean, it's crazy that, and become public, and you don't want your posting about your grandkids or kids, on there and everybody get to go and look at it. I mean, you can reserve that to be more private, but because he talked about certain stuff, and it would be friends of his on Facebook that would ask him about something coming up, and of course he would respond to him on his private social media, and then he gets sued over it. So, we're talking a few years of litigation this guy had to go through. And then also, they had to disclose, it was like 26,000 pages of Facebook, where the judge had to go through. And the judge ordered him to disclose, I think, like 126 pages. And then they get their attorney's fees. I mean, they probably got tens of thousands of dollars in attorney's fees just to get this order from the judge. So that's why I just want to caution you. And these are all like 2022, 2023. This new social media, these attorneys are finding ways to get cases against board members, and that's why I just want to caution you. I don't want you to be scared to death of going on social media again, but just if you have any questions, the city clerk and myself are here 5 days a week most of the time, sometimes even on the weekend, but we're available to you. So if you have questions, please come in, and I'd rather you ask a question than we get sued and then I'm answering that question later, because then you're going to have to deal with it. I'm going to have to deal with it. So that's all I wanted to say. Again, open door, so come and see us if you have any questions.
Yes, I agree. And I mean, one thing we used to say, it was just kind of a rule of thumb. If you didn't want to see it, if you wouldn't want to see what you say in a text or in an email on the front page of the newspaper, just consider what you're writing about when you're writing about city business. So, and then this is just kind of an overview of what we talked about, and it's, it sounds kind of scary, but it's really not. It's quite simple. So this board is subject to sunshine law and public records law. It is your responsibility to maintain all board business-related records except for city emails. If you want to keep them, that's great, but we also will always have access to those. You will be contacted by the city if a public records request is made for your records. So you don't have to be on the lookout and think, we'll definitely get in touch with you if we have something. Do your best to limit any city-related texts or communication on personal devices. Keeping it with the city email address is what we recommend, and that just makes it easier for you and for us. And when you separate from the CRB, just make sure you submit all those records to the city clerk. So it's kind of as simple as that. Does anybody have any questions? Nope. All right. I'd be happy to also email this presentation because I know there's kind of a lot of verbiage in it or whatever, and we kind of went through it pretty quickly, but if you want to refer back, I'd be happy to email it to you as well. So I think that's it.
All righty. Thanks, Mary. Appreciate it. Lee,
Welcome.
thank you. Appreciate all of that. Board members, you can't take it back. You're on now. You're stuck. No take backs. And
No take that.
but also, I want to publicly mention that my Facebook account got hacked about 5 years ago, and I've never been on since. So if you're getting anything from me on Facebook, it's not me. But I did want to thank staff. Want to thank Mary and Sujay for for getting all this stuff together, and then the new board for taking a whole lot of time. And I apologize. I promise this will be the longest meeting of the year. So I just wanted to mention that. So thanks. Motion to adjourn?
Motion adjourned.